Chapter 242. There was no doubt that the 5 of them were the best of the younger generation of Knights Templars. Their appearance had changed the mentality of those who were inclined to join the Magic Temple. With their return, no one dared to say that the Knights Templars didn't have a younger generation. Among the 5 young Knight Templars, there were 3 rank 9 and 2 rank 8. One of them had a domain and defeated the Temple Master of the Warrior Temple. If they had represented the Knights Templars in today's battle, what would be the success rate of the Knights Templars? Without a doubt, among the 5 of them, there would definitely be someone who would be known as the new Knight of the Seal. For the Knights Templars, as long as there was a Knight of the Seal leading them, their advantage would always exist. Sima Xian's arrogance shocked many people. However, what really shocked everyone was Long Haochen's victory over Qiu Yonghao. The names of Light of Dawn and Long Haochen were deeply imprinted in the hearts of the higher-ups of the Temple League. Even the commoners who weren't strong could see Long Haochen's strength. After all, he had defeated the Temple Master of the Warrior Temple. Late at night, outside the Sanctuary Alliance's great trial ground, many spectators fell asleep on the ground. In order to maintain their current position the next day, they even brought a lot of dry food and water. The first match of the temple tournament had already brought them countless surprises. Compared to the previous temple tournament, this tournament was much more exciting, especially the appearance of the young powerhouses. The young people in the sacred city were even more excited. The name of Light of Dawn was spread all over the streets and alleys. With the sacred city as the center, it spread to the entire alliance. Walking out of the Sanctuary Alliance's great trial ground slowly, Long Haochen and his companions headed straight to the headquarters of the Temple League. After a day of competition, they could no longer stay in a hotel like before. Otherwise, they would definitely not be able to rest peacefully. So, their resting place was changed to Knights Templars. Long Tianyin walked out of the great trial field of the Covenant Alliance with a smile. Before he led the Adamantine Knight back to the headquarters of the Covenant Alliance, many people hurried over. Among them, the fastest was Lin Xian. Before she could get close, she was stopped by a knight on a golden pedestal. However, she was a mithril pedestal knight. Most of the knight on a golden pedestal knew her. Lin Xian had also participated in the internal selection of the Knights Templars to participate in the temple tournament. Without waiting for Lin Xian to speak, Long Tianyin nodded to her and said, "Follow me. We want to go too." 2 clear voices were heard. It was Feng Ling and Endless Night. Even though Endless Night tried to stop them, he couldn't change Feng Ling's mind. After the competition ended, Long Haochen and the others left. They had 5 knight in their team. Naturally, the possibility of them going to the headquarters of the Knights Templars was the highest. Long Tianyin smiled and said, "It's the 2 of you. Then, come along." As soon as he finished speaking, he subconsciously raised his head. In midair, a pair of huge fiery red spiritual wings were folded. A figure had already landed in front of him. It was the Magic Temple's Deputy Temple Master, Lin Chen. Brother Long Lin Chen bowed to Long Tianyin in a wizard's manner. Long Tianyin chuckled and said, "Why? Brother Lin, are you going back with me?" Lin Chen's expression was a little anxious, but there was even more excitement. However, he still shook his head and said telepathically, "Tell that brat to come and see me later." Long Tianyin chuckled and said, "All right. Those brats have indeed disappeared for too long. I didn't think that they would be able to amaze the world today." The wrinkles on Lin Chen's face twitched. In his heart, he thought, how could you not know that they had returned? When your grandson appeared, you were very calm and kept me in the dark. That brat. I'll take care of him later. After all, the Magic Temple and the Knights Templars were competitors. He couldn't stay here for too long, so he said, "Thank you, Brother Long." After saying this, he revealed a kind smile to Lin Xian and said, "Xianer, don't give me any face. Take care of him." After saying this, he bowed to Long Tianyin again and turned to leave. Lin Xian, Feng Ling and Yi Weiyang followed Long Tianyin back to the Sanctuary Alliance headquarters. Long Tianyin asked the knight on a golden pedestal to disperse first. Then, he said to the three of them, "Follow me." Just as they walked into the Knights Templars' area in the Sanctuary Alliance headquarters, a gentle voice with some excitement was heard. "Sister." Long Haochen, who had taken off his cloak, was standing there. He seemed to have expected everything. Behind him stood Lin Xian and Sima Xian. Long Haochen. Hearing Long Haochen call her sister, Lin Xian could no longer suppress her emotions. She quickly took a few steps forward and hugged Long Haochen tightly. Long Haochen had always treated Lin Xian as his own sister. The two of them hugged each other tightly. Lin Xian instantly burst into tears. Feng Ling and Yi Weiyang, who were following behind, couldn't help but have their eyes turn red from the excitement of this reunion. Sima Xian looked at Feng Ling. His gaze was a little sluggish. His majestic body was even trembling slightly. However, he just couldn't take a step forward. He couldn't even say a single word. His mouth was open and his lips were buzzing. Feng Ling bit her lower lip and stared at him in a daze. She practically squeezed out a few words from the gaps of her teeth. "Sima Xian, here." Sima Xian immediately stood at attention. He seemed to have reacted as well. Then, he rushed towards Feng Ling with large strides. "Stop right there!" Feng Ling suddenly shouted. She raised her right hand and pointed at Sima Xian. Her delicate body trembled even more violently. However, Sima Xian hurriedly stopped and said gently, "Ling I want to hug you too. Is that okay?" "You bastard!" Feng Ling shouted once again. Sima Xian scratched his head and said with a bitter expression, I'm a bastard. It's all my fault. I was wrong." Feng Ling's expression suddenly became calm. She looked at Sima Xian, who was already 3 meters away from her. She said coldly, "Sima Xian, I came here today to tell you that we're over. I already have a man. Although you've scrammed back, don't harass me in the future. I've made a clean break with you. There's no longer any connection between us." After saying this, she pulled Yi Weiyang and turned to leave. However, just as she turned around, tears flowed down her cheeks. In these past few years, she didn't know how many times she had woken up from nightmares. Especially after the Crimson Dragon armor had been broken, she didn't know how many times she had shed tears for him. The pain of waiting was always the most torturous. She had too many grievances in her heart. Before coming here, her heart was only filled with joy and excitement for his return. However, now that she was in front of him, she could no longer suppress the grievances in her heart. It was as if a geyser had erupted. Sima Xian was stunned. He looked at Feng Ling who was walking away and didn't know what to do for a moment. Lin Xian kicked his butt from behind and said, "Idiot, why aren't you chasing after her? What are you standing there for? Are you really going to let her go?" "All right. Good kick." Sima Xian immediately came to his senses. His figure flashed and he chased after Feng Ling and Yi Weiyang. He was already a 9th-stage powerhouse now. With his speed, he caught up to Feng Ling in a few steps. He grabbed her shoulder and said something stupid, "I won't let you go." Feng Ling turned her head and glared at him fiercely. "I've already said that I'm cutting all ties with you. Are you going to force me?" Seeing her red eyes from crying, Sima Xian felt a sharp pain in his heart. He fiercely pulled her into his embrace and hugged her tightly. "Even if you force me, I won't let you go. I don't care if you have a man or not. If you have a man, I'll kill him and snatch you back to be my wife. If you have a child, he'll be my child. I'll kill his father and raise him as my own son. Are you even human?" Feng Ling didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She gritted her teeth and clawed at his body. However, Sima Xian hugged her tightly and wouldn't let go no matter what. On the side, when Yi Weiyang heard Sima Xian's domineering confession, the muscles on her face twitched and she almost laughed out loud. What kind of logic was that? If she married someone, she would kill their man and steal their son as her own. What kind of bastard logic was that? Perhaps only Sima Xian would say something like that. However, Feng Ling really liked this. What she liked the most was Sima Xian's toughness. Under his broad embrace and strong arms, her resistance gradually weakened. In the end, she was like Lin Xian, crying loudly in Sima Xian's embrace. She cried until Sima Xian didn't know what to do, but he didn't dare let go of her. He could only use clumsy words to comfort her. On the other side, Lin Xian had already moved to Long Haochen's side. He raised his hand and touched Long Haochen, saying in a low voice, "Boss, this is my wife. Shouldn't you let me hug her too?" Hearing his voice, Lin Xian fiercely raised her head from Long Haochen's embrace and angrily said, "Who's your wife? You still know to come back? After all these years, there wasn't even a bit of news from you. I already thought you were dead." Compared to Feng Ling, who was tough on the outside but soft on the inside, Lin Xian was definitely tough on the outside but hard on the inside. Although Lin Xian's return made her extremely surprised and excited, it wasn't that easy for her to forgive Lin Xian. Long Haochen let go of Lin Xian and said softly, "Sister, don't blame Lin Xian. We lost contact for so long because of me. It was my mistake. It almost caused the entire team to be destroyed by the demons. Later, we entered a state of deep meditation under special circumstances. When we woke up, it was already 4 years later. So, it's not that Lin Xian didn't want to contact us. It's just that we didn't have the chance to contact each other." Lin Xian was stunned for a moment. Her eyes softened a little, but she still didn't look at Lin Xian. She said to Long Haochen, "What happened?" Long Tianyin said, "Are you guys planning to talk here? Come in." As he said that, the Knight of the Seal leading the Knights Templars strode forward and led everyone to the meeting room of the Knights Templars. The other members of the Light of Dawn monster hunters were already waiting there. At this time, they all took off their cloaks. At this time, Sima Xian looked the strangest. He was still carrying Feng Ling. He was much taller than Feng Ling, so Feng Ling's feet were off the ground. He walked in with her in his arms. As soon as they entered the meeting room, everyone couldn't help but sneer. Feng Ling said angrily, "Let go of me." However, Sima Xian said firmly, "I'm not letting go. Isn't it just being mocked by them? I admit it. What if I let go of you and you run away? I won't have a wife anymore." As he said that, he pulled out a chair and sat on it with Feng Ling in his arms. He let Feng Ling sit on his thighs, but he refused to let go of her. With his cultivation, Feng Ling couldn't break free no matter how hard she struggled. Little did he know that Feng Ling liked this kind of reckless wildness the most. Although she was shy, she didn't resist anymore. She buried her face in his broad shoulders and refused to look up. Long Haochen invited Long Tianyin to sit at the head of the table. He sat next to Long Tianyin and said, "Sis, Miss Endless, Miss Ling, regarding our disappearance, I represent the Light of Dawn monster hunters to apologize to you. Just as I said, everything is my fault." At this time, Feng Ling and Lin Xian's emotions were surging. Only Endless Night's emotions were relatively stable. She looked at Long Haochen and said, "Leader Long, I'm very interested to hear what you guys encountered in the demons. You actually didn't return after such a long time. Furthermore, there wasn't any news at all." Long Haochen looked at Kai beside him and subconsciously held her small hand under the table. Even though it had been so long, when he thought about it now, he still felt a deep lingering fear in his heart. He wasn't afraid of death, but he was afraid of losing Kai. And that time, he was so close to being separated from Kai forever. We fell into the Demon Emperor's trap and fell into the demon's trap. Thus, Long Haochen began to talk about how they saved Yang Wenjiao from the hands of the dragon rider demon god Asmodeus. He talked about how he found out that the demon emperor wanted to kill them and how he fell into the demon emperor's trap step by step. When he said that his heart was pierced by the demon emperor's attack, Lin Xian and Endless Night couldn't help but cry out in shock. Even Feng Ling erased her head from Sima Xian's embrace in shock. They had actually been besieged by the demon emperor, the moon demon, and the star demon, but at this moment, not a single one of them was missing. Although Long Haochen didn't add too much emotion in his description, the three women had come into contact with the demons many times, so they naturally understood what it was like to be besieged by the three most powerful demons in the heart of Demon City. Although I don't know why the demon emperor was willing to kill me in exchange for letting my companions go, at that time, I knew that I was dead for sure. Although I didn't know why the demon god emperor was willing to kill me in exchange for letting my companions go, I knew that I was definitely going to die at that time. The demon god emperor kept his promise and allowed his companions to bring my corpse out of Demon City. In the early years, we had once discovered a ruin. In this ruin, there was the inheritance of an ancient powerhouse. If we could obtain this inheritance, then I would still have hope of being resurrected. Thus, in order to resurrect me, everyone entered that place filled with many dangers. After experiencing countless hardships and dangers, even when everyone was seriously injured and on the verge of death, they finally obtained that inheritance and helped me reconstruct my heart. That is why I am here in front of you now. The power left behind by that ancient Almighty was extremely huge. In order to collectively absorb this energy we cultivated in that ruin. But who knew that this closed-door cultivation would last for more than 4 years? When we woke up, it was already half a year ago. After 4 years of deep meditation, we've learned a lot. We don't actually know how much time has passed after that. We thought it was only a few days. In the process of deep meditation, everyone's cultivation has increased tremendously, and we've gained many new understandings. This is probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so let's continue to cultivate in the remaining time and integrate our new understandings with our cultivation. Only then will we be able to benefit from the grand competition of the Saint Hall today. When we just came back, Lin Xian and Sima wanted to look for you immediately, but I stopped them. You should know that this year's temple competition is unusual and may very well be a turning point for the Alliance. We want to do something in this year's temple competition in hopes of making the Alliance stronger in the future. Therefore, before the competition begins, I ask them to bear with it temporarily. It's all my fault. I hope that you can forgive them. At the same time, on behalf of the Light of Dawn monster hunters, I would like to thank you for waiting for them. It must be the luckiest thing in their lives for them to find companions like you. As he spoke, Long Haochen stood up again and bowed respectfully to the three ladies. Although Long Haochen's narration was as plain as possible, it was still full of ups and downs and was extremely thrilling in the ears of the three ladies. They really almost couldn't come back. At this moment, the anger in Feng Ling Er's heart had already disappeared. She hugged Sima Xian, and her eyes were filled with gentleness. She only had one thought in her mind: it was good that he was back. Lin Xian's expression eased up a lot. Lin Xian immediately seized the opportunity and sat down next to him. Endless Night stood up and nodded towards Long Haochen, saying, "I'm very fortunate to be able to hear of Dragon Leader and everyone else's experiences. You're all heroes of the Alliance. Ling Er, I can see that she doesn't want to come with me. You guys should still have things to discuss, so I'll be heading back first. Goodbye." Long Haochen's heart moved. He said to Han Yu, "Send Miss Endless Night off." "Okay," Han Yu replied. He gestured towards Endless Night and led him out. Long Haochen said to Feng Ling Er, "Miss Ling Er, may I take the liberty to ask you a question?" Feng Ling Er nodded her head. At this moment, Sima Xian saw that she couldn't run, so he put her on the chair next to him. However, his large hand was still wrapped around her waist. At this moment, the bald cleric didn't have the domineering air he had during the match. On his face, there was only a happy, silly smile. Long Houchen said, I wonder if Miss Endless Night already has a partner? Feng Ling Er stared blankly, saying, What? Don't you already have her? She pointed at Kair. Kair giggled, saying, He's not saying it for himself, but for Han Yu, the one who just sent Miss Endless Night off. Speaking of which, within the glimmer of dawn monster hunters, the only single person was Han Yu. Even Duan Yi, who was a temporary member, had a wife who was his childhood sweetheart. Before they disappeared, Duan Yi was already married. It's just that his wife was an ordinary person, not a professional. This time, before they returned to the Holy City, Duan Yi had already specially gone to see his wife to report that he was safe. As a team leader, Long Houchen was naturally concerned about the marriage of his team members. Han Yu had a calm personality. Whether it was his looks or his ability, he was the best choice. It was only because he had always been a demon hunter that he didn't have the chance to obtain his own feelings. Now that they were both at the 9th rank, their ability to protect themselves on the battlefield had greatly increased. Naturally, Long Houchen was also concerned about finding a female confidant for him. Everyone had come into contact with Endless Night several times. Not only was this girl extremely beautiful, she was also very capable. The Holy Alliance auction house was well managed by her. Feng Ling Er only made some big decisions. Moreover, Endless Night was the descendant of the radiant sword god Yi Wushang. With these combined factors, if they could matchmake her with Han Yu, it would naturally be a great thing. Hearing Kai Er's words, Feng Ling Er's eyes instantly lit up. She said, Sister Endless has very high standards. She has always been single. I just don't know if that knight of yours will be able to move her heart. Long Houchen smiled faintly and said, Then I'll have to trouble you to help me build a bridge. I can see that your relationship with Lady Endless is very good. If she can also become a member of our Light of Dawn's future family, wouldn't your relationship be even closer? I can reveal a little to you. After this tournament of the temple is over, we will be heading to the Knights Templars. With Han Yu's strength, it is very likely that he will obtain the recognition of a throne of God. I think that a Knight of the Seal should be worthy of Lady Endless. Feng Ling Er's eyes flashed as she said, He is indeed worthy. However, Captain Long, are you planning to take down the entire Sanctuary Alliance auction house in one fell swoop? Do you have other motives? Long Houchen smiled faintly and said, This, I'll let Sima explain it to you in private. Of course, we hope to obtain the support of the Sanctuary Alliance auction house. However, I believe that this will only be beneficial to the auction house in the future. Although Long Tianyin was sitting at the head of the table, he did not say a word from start to finish. He only looked at Long Houchen. After returning after more than 4 years, not only was Long Houchen calmer and more reserved, but he also had an indescribable majesty. Although he looked very gentle when he spoke, he gave people a feeling that he was right. This was a special kind of temperament, the aura of a king. When the light of dawn appeared again, the second day of the temple tournament had also begun. The participants who were eliminated yesterday had all gone to the spectator area. Only the experts from the 6 temples and the members of the Light of Dawn monster hunters who had entered the second round remained in the competition area. For the convenience of entering the venue, the members of the Light of Dawn monster hunters sat in the seats that the Knights Templars had vacated. This action of theirs made the Magic Temple Master Li Jingji's expression turn even uglier. There were a total of 95 participants in today's competition. This meant that one of them was destined to be absent. However, luck was always a part of one's strength. After this round, there would be 48 participants who would enter the third round. Then, the elimination round would continue until the top 3 were decided. The top 3 had 2 choices. One was to obtain all the previous points and end the competition as usual. The other was to participate in a round-robin tournament. For every round they won, they would obtain an additional 10 points. There would be a total of 3 rounds. If someone could defeat two other opponents at the same time and become the final champion, they would obtain an additional 20 points. At the start of the competition, the Light of Choice appeared for the first time. One of them landed on a member of the Light of Dawn Monster Hunters. Today, the members of the Light of Dawn Monster Hunters had all taken off their cloak. The Light of Choice shone on Kai. Another Light of Choice seemed to coincidentally land on the Assassin Temple, not far away. The person chosen was the chief elder of the Assassin Temple, Shuejisheng, who possessed 12 airspace zones. Kai-er's beautiful face immediately became strange. Not long ago, she had fought with Shuejisheng. Although there was no clear winner in the end, she had forced Shuejisheng to admit defeat with her domain skill, Flourishing Lotus. She did not expect that she would have to face the chief elder of the Assassin Temple again. With a flash of her figure, she had already entered the arena. However, before Kai-er could make her move on the other side, Shuejisheng, who hadn't even entered the arena yet, already spoke with his aged voice. "I admit defeat." As soon as he said that, the audience could not help but be in an uproar. Shuejisheng was a veteran powerhouse of the Assassin Temple. He was currently the #1 powerhouse in the Assassin Temple. Although his seniority was not as terrifying as that of the legendary powerhouse Chen Zidian, he was still one generation older than the Temple Master Xing Yu. Yet, he actually retreated without a fight. He did not even enter the arena. What was going on? Li Jingji finally could not take it anymore. He said in a deep voice, "Chief Judge, this is the temple tournament. It is not a game. Yesterday, the Sanshui Temple Master admitted defeat. Today, Elder Shuejisheng from the Assassin Temple also admitted defeat. They are all top powerhouses of their respective temple. If such situations continue to happen in the upcoming matches, what is the point of our temple tournament?" On the Knights Templars' VIP stand, Chen Zidian's voice sounded. "What Temple Master Li said makes sense. Sanshui, Elder Shui, I need an explanation for giving up." Sanshui Popo had always been a fearless person. She coldly snorted and said to Li Jingji, "Temple Master Li, you seem to be meddling too much. There is only one reason for me to admit defeat. I am not a match for Chen Ying'er. She is my granddaughter. We have already fought in private. That is all." Shuejisheng said indifferently, "My situation is the same as Sanshui Popo's. Not long ago, I had a match with Lady Kai-er. I lost. I don't want to humiliate myself again, so I admit defeat. Chief Judge, is this reason enough?" As a powerhouse of the current generation, their face was sometimes more important than their lives. Sanshui Popo and Shuejisheng respectively admitted that they were not a match for Chen Ying'er and Kai-er. This immediately caused an uproar. The Light of Dawn Monster Hunters, which had already received a lot of attention, was once again pushed to the heart of the struggle. Sanshui Popo was a little better. After all, she had just broken through to the 9th Order not long ago. However, Shuejisheng was the #1 powerhouse of the Assassin Temple. He possessed the powerful 12 airspace domains. Unexpectedly, he was unable to contend against the members of the Light of Dawn Monster Hunters. In an instant, the status of the Light of Dawn rose to an unprecedented height. Li Jingji's complexion was clearly a little green. However, he could not say anything. He had to suffer this grievance in silence. Chen Zidian said in a deep voice, "In that case, the competition will continue. If there is another situation where someone admits defeat, they must give an explanation. Otherwise, a portion of the temple's points will be deducted." What was surprising was that the second Light of Choice of the day actually chose a member of the Light of Dawn Monster Hunters again. This time, the target was Wang Yuan. The other Light of Choice fell on the Magic Temple's lineup. It chose Tan Wan, who had won yesterday by a fluke. After all, Tan Wan was still very young. Her cultivation was definitely one of the lower ranks of the Mage Sanctuary's participants. In yesterday's battle, She had relied on some of Li Jingji's special magic to defeat her opponent with great difficulty and enter the second round. Wang Yuanyuan was dressed in a white tight suit today. She had cut her hair short, which made her look even more heroic. Her slender figure leaped and entered the arena gracefully. If one looked closely, they would notice that Wang Yuanyuan's eyes were clearly different from before. Her pupils were actually a light pink. Facing Wang Yuanyuan, who was obviously younger than her, Tan Wan's eyes revealed a hint of stubbornness. Why can a member of the Light of Dawn possess such powerful strength at such a young age? I must defeat her. Tan Wan, who was wearing a green robe, immediately spread her spiritual wings. With a flap of her spiritual wings, she propelled herself into the air. Her body spun in the air, and instantly, countless tiny green wind blades were released by her. The clear chanting of the incantation sounded like a storm, and the green light illuminated half of the arena. Those tiny green wind blades began to undergo a strange change. They circled around Tan Wan's body, and their speed became faster and faster. More green light was also rapidly separated from Tan Wan's body. Wang Yuanyuan also moved. She did not release her spiritual wings, but just walked towards Tan Wan step by step. She raised her head slightly, and the color of her pink eyes gradually deepened, turning into a dark red. She looked rather strange and oppressive, as though her eyes could drip blood at any time. The Sanctuary Alliance's great trial was vast. With Wang Yuanyuan's current speed, she would probably need half a minute to get close to Tan Wan. However, she did not seem to be in a hurry at all, as though she was waiting for Tan Wan to cast her magic. At the magic temple's side, Li Jingji's expression became even uglier. Although Wang Yuanyuan had not made her move yet, from her performance in the battle yesterday, Li Jingji knew that she was also a rank 9 powerhouse. Yesterday, Wang Yuanyuan's opponent was a knight. In less than 2 minutes, the knight was defeated by Wang Yuanyuan's powerful spatial power. At that time, Wang Yuanyuan launched an attack right away, unlike today. She was clearly doing this for the magic temple to see. So what if she is a rank 9? When the magic I created is truly unleashed, even a rank 9 might not necessarily win. Li Jingji's eyes flickered coldly, and his gaze subconsciously looked at Long Haochen, who was sitting in the Knights Templars' area of contestants. Long Haochen appeared to be very calm as he sat there, still exuding a warm temperament that was unique to him, just like an ordinary young man. However, Li Jingji deeply understood that such a young man had already greatly affected his plan. Tan Wan's chanting voice had begun to become louder and louder. This kind of chanting method was extremely rare, because during the chanting process of a magic spell, not a single note could be wrong, and there was also a limit to the chanting speed. Chanting at such a rapid speed could very likely cause the magic to fail, and the spell she was chanting seemed to be quite different from normal magic spells. This incantation was Li Jingji's own creation. As the most outstanding genius of the mage sanctuary in the past 1,000 years, Li Jingji had combined some ancient elven incantations with his own comprehension to create a special incantation chant. Back then, he had taken Tan Wan as his disciple precisely because Tan Wan could comprehend this incantation. The tiny wind blades around Tan Wan's body had already turned into a bluish-green color, completely covering her body. The number of wind blades stopped increasing after reaching a certain number, but the bluish-green color became more and more vibrant. Around the wind blades, one could faintly see that there was even a green electric light lingering, and Tan Wan's chanting was almost at the peak of its intensity. Ah! Just when Wang Yuanyuan was 50 meters away from Tan Wan let out a high-pitched scream. Suddenly, the green wind blades around her body suddenly let out a buzzing sound, and then turned into a tornado with a diameter of 3 meters and a height of 5 meters, flying straight towards Wang Yuanyuan. Anyone could see that this was definitely not an ordinary tornado, and each of the tiny wind blades had the power of the Ling Gang. After chanting this spell, Tan Wan had already fallen from the sky. Her face was pale, and her body swayed, almost falling to the ground. It was obvious that this magic spell had almost consumed all of her spiritual power. Even Tan Wan herself did not expect to be able to complete this magic spell. The most unique feature of her magic was that it could attack and defend at the same time. If she was attacked by the enemy during the chanting process, the wind blades that had already appeared would automatically protect her and attack the enemy. As long as her magic spell was not broken by the enemy, she could continue chanting continuously. This was already a forbidden spell. With Tan Wan's level 8 cultivation, she could be proud of herself for being able to cast such a forbidden spell of the Wind series without the help of any equipment. Li Jingji gave this magic a very domineering name, Heaven Underworld. Regardless of whether it was a single target or a group attack, it had extremely terrifying destructive power. From Tan Wan's magic spell, one could see how powerful Li Jingji was. It was very difficult for a mage of the same level to cast such a terrifying magic spell. Facing Heaven Underworld, Wang Yuanyuan stopped in her track. She made an action that no one could understand. She raised her right hand and her index, middle, and ring fingers touched the space between her eyebrows. At the same time, she closed her blood-red eyes. Chapter 243. The forbidden spell, Blue Sky Underworld, appeared in front of Wang Yuanyuan in the blink of an eye. A huge suction force was emitted from it, causing Wang Yuanyuan's clothes to flutter in the wind. On the other hand, Wang Yuanyuan seemed to have not seen the forbidden spell at all. She still stood there with her right index, ring, and index fingers touching the space between her eyebrows. Tan Wan's expression changed slightly because she was very clear about the power of her forbidden spell. More importantly, she could only release the forbidden spell and not withdraw it. Her cultivation was far from being able to control it. If Wang Yuanyuan really died in the forbidden spell, not only would the Magic Temple and the Light of Dawn become sworn enemies, but she would also be judged to have lost. After all, the Magic Temple and the Light of Dawn were only competitors at most. Their common enemy was the demons. Tan Wan had never thought of killing the members of the Light of Dawn. It was only because the Light of Dawn was too powerful that she used her strongest spell right from the start. At this moment, the Blue Sky Underworld forbidden spell had already swept towards Wang Yuanyuan. It was too late for regrets now. Suddenly, with Wang Yuanyuan's body as the center, a thick layer of blood-red light suddenly swept out from her body. It instantly wrapped around her body and spread outwards at an astonishing speed. In an instant, it came into contact with the Blue Sky Underworld. The Blue Sky Underworld was dark green, while the blood-red light was bright red. The two could be said to be separated in the air. A shocking scene appeared. Although the blood-red haze was released later, it was as powerful as a stormy sea. The thick smell of blood instantly filled the air. The red light forcibly enveloped the dark green-yellow sky underworld. A terrifying killing intent and the smell of blood filled the air. The red light surged violently, while the dark green light was completely buried in the blood. Only the blood mist could be seen surging and spreading. In just a short while, the entire great trial field had been completely dyed the color of blood. Li Jingji's expression became even more solemn. This was clearly the power of a realm. Apart from Long Haochen, there was actually someone else in the Light of Dawn monster hunters who had a realm. If what Xue Jisheng said was true, then the reincarnation saint, Kai Er, should also have a realm. She already had 3 realms. Even in any temple, there would only be 3 domain-level powerhouses. The fact that the Light of Dawn monster hunters had such strength meant that their overall strength was close to that of the legendary monster hunters like the demon god's fall. Furthermore, they were still so young. Yes, the blood-red light was Wang Yuanyuan's realm, which she named the Blood Realm. In terms of talent, Wang Yuanyuan was definitely ranked behind the Light of Dawn monster hunters. However, in terms of willpower, she was comparable to Long Haochen and Kai Er. In fact, she was even more persistent in certain aspects. It was precisely because Wang Yuanyuan knew that she couldn't be compared to her companions that she put in more effort. In the past 2 years of the Holy War, she had sacrificed the most and killed the most among the members of the Light of Dawn. She had found her own way to advance on this path of slaughter. In the Tower of Eternity, when she used the 7 hollow silver crystals to summon the true power of the mighty miracle god, her blood boiled and merged with her bloody and murderous aura, which laid the foundation for her to comprehend the blood realm. After 4 years of deep meditation, not only did Wang Yuanyuan break through to the 9th rank, but she also became the 4th person to comprehend a realm after Long Haochen, Kai Er, and Chen Ying-er, surpassing the achievements of Sima Xian, Lin Xian, Han Yu, and Zhang Fangfang. She became the 4th strongest person in the team. Against Tan Wan, she didn't need to use her realm, but before the match, Long Haochen had told his companions that the temple tournament was the time to show off their strength. They had to let the higher-ups of the Temple League see their strength, so that their plan could continue. Therefore, when Wang Yuanyuan saw that her opponent was someone from the Magic Temple, she chose to release her realm. The forbidden curse of Yellow Springs was indeed powerful. If it was used by Li Jingji, combined with his own realm, then Wang Yuanyuan would definitely not be able to resist it. However, Tan Wan was only at the 8th rank, so she didn't have any control over the forbidden curse. In the end, she was still submerged in the bloody and murderous realm and disappeared into nothingness. The bloody light disappeared, and Wang Yuanyuan didn't even look at Tan Wan. She turned around and walked out of the arena. Once the realm was released, the winner was decided. The Sanctuary Alliance's great trial grounds once again fell into silence because of the Light of Dawn. The Light of Dawn monster hunters had used their own strength to prove to everyone that they were strong, worthy of the strength of a legend ranker monster hunter. The second round of the tournament continued. As the first round had already eliminated half of the participants with weaker cultivations, in this second round, more than 3/4 of the participants were at the 9th rank. Even so, when the second round of the tournament ended, the Light of Dawn monster hunters had obtained an impressive result of 9 wins and 1 loss. Only Duan Yi had lost to the chivalrous Xing Yu. After the second round of the tournament ended, there were some changes in the point. The Knights Templars' advantage had been slightly weakened. Only 11 members of the Knights Templars had entered the third round. 13 of them had been eliminated. The Magic Temple had 10 members, the Light of Dawn Monster Hunters had 9 members, the Soul Temple had 7 members, the Assassin Temple had 6 members, and the Warrior Temple had 5 members. As a result, the points had also changed. After winning the second round, every participant that qualified would receive 2 points. Adding the points from the first round, the Knights Templars were still in first place with 46 points. The Magic Temple was in second place with 41 points. The Soul Temple was in third place with 30 points. The Light of Dawn Monster Hunters was in fourth place with 28 points. The Assassin Temple was in fifth place with 26 points. The Warrior Temple was in last place with 20 points. The Light of Dawn Monster Hunters had participated in the Temple Tournament with 10 members. After the second round of the individual competition, they were able to be in fourth place instead of last place. This had already fully demonstrated their strength. Moreover, based on the strength displayed by Long Haochen and the others, it was obvious that they would be able to do more in the subsequent rounds. The final number of points for the individual competition was still hard to predict. When the second round of the tournament ended, it was already past noon. However, the third round of the tournament began immediately without any time for rest. The first 2 rounds of the individual competition mainly tested the overall strength of each temple. After the third round of the tournament, it would be up to the individual strength of the remaining powerhouses. If they won this round, each of them would receive 4 points. There were a total of 24 matches in the third round of the tournament. 48 people would fight against each other. However, this was only the first match, and it was already like Mars colliding with Earth. The two selection lights chose the Lord of the Magic Temple, Li Jingji, and the Lord of the Knights Templars, the Knight of the Seal, Long Tianyin. However, what shocked everyone was that the duration of the match was surprisingly short. It only took a total of 5 minutes for Li Jingji to defeat Long Tianyin with his powerful Realm of Wind and his powerful magic strength. This made the Magic Temple even more powerful. After watching the match, Long Haochen was also shocked. Although he knew that his grandfather was probably not a match for Li Jingji, he did not expect his grandfather to lose so quickly. Li Jingji's control over the wind element had reached an insanely strong level. Moreover, Long Tianyin was a Knight of the Seal. Without the enhancement from the Throne of God, his strength was reduced by at least half. Otherwise, he might still have a chance. The Lord of the Knights Templars was eliminated in the 3rd round of the individual competition. This had never happened in the past hundreds of years. Long Tianyin's expression was terrible, but he had no choice but to accept this fact. Li Jingji's strength was also displayed in this round. Those who could enter the 3rd round were the true elites of the 5 temples. The competition was also at its climax. Although Yang Wenjiao was victorious in the 2nd round, he had paid almost everything. Relying on the amplification of the Starbright Unicorn's domain of light, he was barely able to defeat a warrior of the 9th step. In the 3rd round, his strength was still far from recovering, and he became the 2nd member of the Bright Glimmer of Dawn Demon Hunt Squad to be eliminated. Yang Wenjiao's elimination meant that the Light of Dawn monster hunters had to face a tough battle in the individual competition. In the 5th round, Chen Ying'er appeared. Her opponent was the Deputy Lord of the Magic Temple, Lin Chen, who was also Lin Xian's grandfather. Lin Xian had already gone to see Lin Chen yesterday, but they did not talk for long before Lin Chen chased him away. Lin Chen did not even say much to Lin Xian. He only told him to treat Lin Xian well. When Lin Xian came back and told Long Haochen understood that Lin Chen's attitude was because the Magic Temple's position in the temple tournament was too sensitive. As the Deputy Lord of the Magic Temple, he could not say much to his grandson, who was a member of the Light of Dawn. He didn't expect to be matched against Chen Ying'er in the competition. Of course, Lin Chen would not admit defeat just because of his grandson. Li Jingji and the powerhouses of the Magic Temple were watching from behind. He had to give it his all. "Grandpa Lin, you don't have to go easy on me." Chen Ying'er smiled sweetly and bowed to Lin Chen. Lin Chen only nodded slightly at her without saying anything. He raised his right hand, and a huge orange-red fireball instantly appeared above his head. As a fire mage, although Lin Chen did not have the unique heart of flame like his grandson, his attainments in fire magic were worthy of his title as the number 1 in the Magic Temple. He had not broken through to the 9th level for a long time because of his talent. However, in the field of fire magic, Lin Chen had put in a lifetime of hard work. His son and daughter-in-law had died in the process of research. The huge orange-red fireball floated there like a blazing sun boat, illuminating Lin Chen's entire body in an orange-red color. His deep incantation was almost inaudible. With a series of hand gestures, an intense orange-red flame shot out from the blazing sun above his head, heading straight for Chen Ying'er. In the contestant area of the Soul Temple, Chen Hongba stood up abruptly and looked at the battlefield with a burning gaze. He cursed in a low voice, "Lin Chen, this old man is really ruthless." He used the Holy Sun spell right from the start. The Holy Sun spell was a powerful magic that Lin Chen had created. For many powerhouses, as they grew older, their cultivation would reach a bottleneck, and it would be very difficult for them to continue advancing. Unless they had an extremely good opportunity, it would be difficult for them to break through again in their lifetime. Under such circumstances, in order to pursue greater strength, they would often put in great effort in the area of self-created abilities. This was especially true for mages, because every type of magic would produce different effects when combined in different ways. Lin Chen was one of the best among them. He did not expect that he would have a breakthrough after going through so many life and death situations in the course of the sacred war. Before this, he had already reached the peak of the 8th level for close to 40 years. In these 40 years, his main focus was on the Holy Sun spell. After his strength broke through to the 9th level, even though this magic temple vice-temple master was still unable to possess the power of a domain, it allowed him to achieve great success in the Holy Sun spell. His strength skyrocketed, and he became one of the top powerhouses in the magic temple. The Holy Sun incantation was a combination of Lin Chen's male yang qi and the natal fire and spiritual energy fire to form a fusion fire. Back then, Lin Xian's father had gone berserk while researching and cultivating the Holy Sun incantation. He had ignited his natal fire and was unable to control it, causing his wife and son to die tragically from the backlash of magic. It could be said that Lin Xian had a natural hatred for the Holy Sun spell, so how could he be willing to learn it? He was even unwilling to cultivate any offensive magic. Later on, although he decided to cultivate offensive magic for Lin Xian's sake, he still rejected the Holy Sun spell. Hence, Lin Chen could be said to be the only person in the world who could cast the Holy Sun spell and cultivate it to its peak. Wherever the reddish-purple flames passed through the air distorted violently. Water-like ripples spread out in all directions. The temperature of the entire great trial grounds rose abruptly, so much so that the colorful light of the protective barrier became even more intense. Chen Ying-er's expression also changed. She did not expect Lin Chen's magic attack to be so fast and powerful. A sparkling and translucent little pig leaped out from Chen Ying-er's bosom. It was Madul. Compared to before, Madul had changed quite a bit. His size was still the same as before, as if he would never grow bigger. However, his skin was as translucent as crystal, and his pair of small eyes were like 2 diamonds that shone brightly. When his body leaped out, there was even a string of sparkling and overflowing colors on his back. In the air, Madul stretched his limbs, and a miraculous scene appeared. Just a moment ago, he was so small and cute, but in the next moment, he instantly enlarged and transformed into a huge black dragon. He opened his mouth, and a pitch-black breath went straight towards Lin Chen's Holy Sun spell. This is the heaven-defying demon dragon? Madul's transformation shocked all the powerhouses from the 6 great temples. The heaven-defying demon dragon was a member of the Demon Emperor's clan. How could a summoner have such a summoned beast? Furthermore, a summoned beast that was released at such a speed could only be a natal summoned beast. The 2 powerful forces, black and orange, collided violently in the air. Terrifying spiritual fluctuations immediately spread out from the center of the collision. Chen Ying clasped her hands in the shape of a heart, and the crisp sound of an incantation echoed in the air. The heaven-defying demon dragon's breath was slightly at a disadvantage when it collided with the Holy Sun spell, but it managed to withstand it in the end. Madul's huge wings flapped hard, and he had already fiercely pounced towards Lin Chen. Lin Chen was also shocked when he saw the heaven-defying demon dragon. However, he was very experienced in combat. Although he was shocked, he did not panic. He pointed his right hand, and the holy sun above his head shone brightly. An orange halo suddenly bloomed, and it collided with Madul's rushing body. The huge body of the heaven-defying demon dragon was actually sent flying by the orange halo. What was even more shocking was that, accompanied by Lin Chen's deep incantation, an orange dragon head emerged from the holy sun, and it spewed a golden-red flame at the heaven-defying demon dragon. The golden-red flame was only as thick as a person's arm, and it was very disproportionate to the orange dragon head that had drilled out. However, as soon as the golden-red flame appeared, the temperature of the entire great trial field instantly skyrocketed. The air inside the protective barrier actually showed water-like ripples, and even the ground seemed to be churning like magma. It could be seen how hot the seemingly small golden-red flame was. In the face of such a high level of flame, Madul clearly hesitated for a moment. His huge body stopped in the air, and a dark purple light seeped out from under his thick scales. It quickly gathered above his head, and turned into a dark purple light pearl in front of him, just in time to block the golden-red flame. "Holy Sun spell, destroy evil!" Lin Chen shouted loudly. Boom! In the air, the dark purple light pearl released by Madul instantly shattered, and his whole body was covered in a layer of golden-red flame. However, the broken dark purple light pearl also emitted a strong layer of dark purple light, isolating the high temperature. Lin Chen's body swayed slightly, and the speed of his incantation clearly slowed down. Meanwhile, Madul, whose whole body was covered in golden-red flame, was thrown far away. His body continuously emitted a dark purple light, dispelling the scorching heat of the golden-red flame. "HM?" Seeing this scene, even Long Houchen was shocked. He could not help but look at Lin Xian beside him. Although the heaven-defying demon dragon that Madul had transformed into was not a real heaven-defying demon dragon, and could only use some basic abilities, it still had the true strength of a 9th-grade magician. However, in front of Lin Chen, it was sent flying in just 2 moves. From the looks of it, it seemed that he had temporarily lost the ability to fight. This kind of strength was not something that a 9th-grade magician should have. Lin Xian smiled bitterly. "The Holy Sun spell is the fruit of my grandfather's lifetime of research. Although it is not a domain, to a certain extent, it is comparable to a domain. With the 3 flames combined, the explosive power of fire magic can be maximized." Long Houchen nodded slightly and said, "It seems that this will be a big test for Ing. In a battle between a summoner and a magician, it should be a battle of cultivation and casting speed." However, with the help of the Holy Sun spell, not only was Lin Chen's casting speed extremely fast, but the power of his magic was also extremely strong. The temperature of the golden-red flames had even surpassed Lin Xian's flame of the heart. In terms of talent and luck, Lin Xian far surpassed his grandfather, but in terms of knowledge of fire, there was still a big gap between him and Lin Xian. In the great trial field, after Lin Chen activated the golden-red flames, his attacks also slowed down slightly. Meanwhile, in the distance, Chen Ying-er had already completed her first summoning spell. A white hexagram appeared in front of her body, and then, with a long and drawn-out dragon roar, an ice dragon over 10 meters long emerged from the white hexagram. In terms of size, this ice dragon was not even as big as the heaven-defying demon dragon that Madul had transformed into. It looked like a young dragon, but it was not an earth dragon or a semi-dragon, but a real dragon that originally belonged to the holy demon continent. When the summoners in the Soul Temple saw this, they could not help but feel excited. To a summoner, summoning a giant dragon was the greatest glory, even if it was only a young dragon. Summoners generally had 2 ways to use the summoning curse. One was to summon a creature from another plane to battle. After the battle, the summoned creature would either die in battle or return to its original plane. The next time it was summoned, it would not be the same magical beast that it had previously summoned. The other method was to form a contract. After forming a contract, the summoner could not let the summoned creature die easily, and the summoned creature would also grow along with the summoner, becoming stronger and stronger. Although the degree of closeness was not as close as the summoner's life summoner, a contract summoned creature could be said to be a part of the summoner's strength. Based on the summoner's strength, the number of contract summoned creatures that a summoner could have was also different. Once a contract summoned creature died, it would be a big blow to the summoner. Generally speaking, with every increase in cultivation base, a summoner could have a contract summoned creature. Although it did not require a chanting time like the summoner's life summoner, it was still much shorter than a normal summoning of a magical beast of the same level. From the time Chen Ying-er took to chant the spell just now, the summoners understood that this young ice dragon was basically Chen Ying-er's contract summoned creature. What they did not know was that this ice dragon was also Chen Ying-er's first contract summoned creature. Before she reached the 7th level, she could not use any summoning magic at all, so she had never had a contract summoned creature. After she reached the 7th level, she stayed in the Soul Temple, undergoing the awakening of the Soul Saintess. Later, she followed Long Haochen into the depths of the demons to fight. Her strength had been increasing, but she had never had a contract summoned creature. When they left the Tower of Eternity, Chen Ying-er's cultivation base had already reached the 9th level. Through the special connection of the Soul Saintess, she found this young ice dragon and formed a contract with it. This was also the first time the ice dragon fought for Chen Ying-er. In fact, Chen Ying-er had already lost in the match with Lin Chen. The first spell she chanted was not to summon the ice dragon, but her 6th earth dragon summoning spell that could release the elemental cage. In her opinion, the heaven-defying demon dragon that Madol transformed into would be able to resist Lin Chen's attacks for a period of time. As long as her elemental cage was completed, Lin Chen would definitely lose. However, things did not go as she wished. Lin Chen's Holy Sun spell was too powerful, and Madol was defeated after only 2 rounds. This forced Chen Ying-er to change her spell and summon the ice dragon to fight for her in the shortest time possible. She even had to change her tactics because of Lin Chen's strength. Otherwise, under Lin Chen's subsequent attacks, she might not even be able to complete the spell. As the Soul Saintess, when casting the summoning spell, Chen Ying-er's time was much shorter than ordinary people. Moreover, her contract summon only needed about 3 seconds of chanting, which was why she could summon the ice dragon so quickly. After more than 4 years of seclusion, Chen Ying-er also had a lot of understanding in the summoning spell. Apart from the 6 earth dragons, she did not bestow souls on other magical beasts. This was because she realized that if she bestow souls on Madol and his contract summon, the effect would be better, and it would produce many strange changes. When the ice dragon appeared, it let out a low roar and spread its wings, completely shielding Chen Ying-er behind it. At the same time, it spat out an icy blue breath towards Lin Chen. Lin Chen's gaze turned solemn. He naturally did not think that he would be able to defeat Chen Ying-er just because he defeated Madol. He had seen Chen Ying-er's previous matches. As a 9th stage spirit shaman, this young lady was very skilled in summoning magical beasts. The living soul gate that she used had an imposing aura that was hard to resist. This was also the reason why he used the Holy Sun spell right from the start. He could not let Chen Ying-er unleash her full power and cast the summoning spell at its strongest. The golden red dragon head was still outside the Holy Sun spell. During the time that the ice dragon appeared, it had already finished preparing. Another golden red breath was spat out. This time, it was only as thick as an arm. In an instant, it streaked across the sky, heading straight for the ice dragon's breath. The difference in strength between the ice dragon and the Holy Sun fire dragon could be clearly seen from the temperature of the great trial ground. Where the ice dragon was, only the area where it and Chen Ying-er were located had a lower temperature, and were not affected by the scorching heat. On the other hand, the temperature brought by the Holy Sun Fire Dragon was boiling the other areas. Without a doubt, the Holy Sun Fire Dragon was much more powerful. Furthermore, Lin Chen was still chanting his incantation. No one knew what the next spell he would use in conjunction with the Holy Sun incantation would be, but it was foreseeable that it would not be weak. At this point in the battle, the situation was already very disadvantageous for Chen Ying. God's descent, 10,000 beasts rise. Chen Ying's beautiful eyes were filled with determination. Don't be fooled by her usual cheerful and carefree demeanor. In reality, her competitive spirit was extremely strong. Yang Wenjiao had already been eliminated. She wouldn't allow herself to be eliminated just like that. All of a sudden, Chen Ying's body was covered in a layer of milky white light. Immediately after, a huge shadow suddenly appeared behind her. The shadow seemed to be humanoid. The moment it appeared, the shocking roars of 10,000 beasts could be heard throughout the entire great trial grounds. The roars of 10,000 beasts was a spectacular sight. Just that one roar alone was enough to make Lin Chen's body sway a little. The holy sun fire dragon within it was also affected. Two misty white rays of light were released from Chen Ying-er's body at the same time. One landed on Madul, who was fighting against the holy sun fire dragon in the distance. The other landed on the ice dragon in front of her. All of a sudden, a strange change occurred. The first thing that caught everyone's attention was the huge ice dragon in front of Chen Ying-er. The ice dragon's body expanded in an instant, and its original icy blue color turned completely white. A white mist of ice seemed to occupy half of the great trial grounds in the blink of an eye. The length of the ice dragon increased to more than 30 meters, and its breath forcefully blocked the holy sun fire dragon's flames. The white and golden-red rays of light intertwined in the air, clashing with each other, not giving way at all. This was the appearance of an adult ice dragon. The powerhouses in the Soul Temple stared at this scene, dumbfounded. In their memory, there had never been a summoner's magic that could make a young magical beast grow up in an instant and burst out with the power of an adult. However, Chen Ying-er did it. The ice dragon was clearly an adult, and even in the face of a highly condensed 3-in-1 fire, it was not at a disadvantage. On the other side, Madul also underwent a great change after being enhanced by the white light released by Chen Ying. His body suddenly expanded to nearly twice its original size, and he also turned into a huge black dragon with a length of more than 30 meters. With a deep roar, dark purple spiritual energy quickly dissolved the holy sun fire dragon's corrosion. An even more shocking scene had yet to occur. Madul looked up to the sky and roared. The black on his body turned white in an extremely short time, and his body also underwent many strange changes. In an instant, he also turned into an adult ice dragon. He spread his wings and flew in the direction of Chen Ying-er. At the same time, he breathed out a breath towards Lin Chen in the distance. This was transformation? The summoners were dumbfounded as they watched the battle in front of them. Even they, who were the most familiar with summoning magic, were deeply shocked by the scene in front of them. The summoning magic that Chen Ying-er cast was something they had never seen or heard of before. What kind of ability was this? The appearance of the second ice dragon also made Lin Chen's expression change. He already felt a lot of pressure in the face of an adult ice dragon. Now that there was a second one, it was difficult for his holy sun fire to gain the upper hand. However, Chen Ying-er's expression remained the same, and she continued to chant the spell. Without the enhancement of the Soul Saint garment, although her magic was limited, it should not be forgotten that she was the first Soul Saintess in the Soul Temple in thousands of years. The huge figure that appeared behind her was the Beast God's descent. After more than 4 years of deep meditation, Chen Ying-er also chose a path for herself. Just like how Lin Xian simplified magic and Sima Xian turned wild in battle, her path was the perfect combination of the Beast God's ability. The two white lights were a domain created by the combination of her soul and her own God's descent. It was called the Beast God's domain. The strength of the Beast God's domain was that it could be an area of effect domain or a single effect domain. Its function was only to enhance Chen Ying-er's summoned beasts. After the infant ice dragon was enhanced by the Beast God's domain, it instantly turned into an adult ice dragon. Madul's strength also increased greatly. If it was an area of effect enhancement, the individual enhancement ability would be weaker, but the amount of enhancement would be much greater. "It's my turn," shouted Chen Ying-er in her heart. She suddenly stopped chanting. Her palms faced outwards as she raised her hands high above her head, making a gesture of holding up the sky. Immediately after, the huge phantom behind her suddenly shattered, turning into countless sparkling and translucent specks of light that floated toward the two ice dragons in front of Chen Ying-er, instantly merging into their bodies. Divine descent, heaven's might domain. Chen Ying shouted, and an unforgettable scene appeared. The two ice dragons raised their heads at the same time. Their eyes turned icy blue instantly. Then, the entire great trial ground turned the same color. The extreme coldness even suppressed the seven-colored radiance of the protective shield of the great trial ground. Cracking sounds could be heard. Just as Lin Chen was about to cast his next spell, he was shocked to discover that the temperature of his holy sun had plummeted. The spell was forcefully interrupted, and a bone-piercing chill assaulted him, instantly freezing him into an ice sculpture. Li Jingji's gaze turned sharp and cold. He gripped the armrests of his chair tightly and his voice was much louder than usual. Two domains. There were two ways to explain the existence of two domains. One was that two domains appeared at the same time, and the other was that one person possessed two domains. The current situation was clearly the former, and these two domains were not released by Chen Ying. It was the domain of the ice dragon. It was the exact same domain of extreme cold. If it was only one domain of extreme cold, Lin Chen might be able to block it with his Holy Sun spell. However, when two domains of extreme cold appeared at the same time, it was almost multiple times stronger. Lin Chen was after all not a domain realm master. His Holy Sun spell was immediately suppressed by the domain of extreme cold. His spell was broken and he was frozen in the domain of extreme cold. Chen Ying relied on the extreme amplification of the Beast God domain to allow Medul and Ice Dragon to have the power of domains at the same time. Although it could only be used for a short period of time, it was enough for Lin Chen. Without the support of the Soul Saint garment, Chen Ying's complexion was obviously a little pale after using the Beast God domain's divine descent, heavenly might. But standing in that world of ice and snow, she gave off a holy and noble feeling, like a snow lotus, untainted by a speck of dust. On the 6 VIP podium, all the referees from the Demon Hunt squads were pouring their spiritual energy into the protective cover to stabilize it from being affected by the dual domains, but their spiritual energy was also being consumed at a rapid pace. From this, it could be seen how frightening the fusion of the dual domains was. "Stop your domain. You win this round." Chen Zidian's voice rang out. At the same time, a golden ray of light descended from the sky and landed on Lin Chen's frozen body. Chen Ying retracted her hand and the amplification ended. The extreme chill domain disappeared as quickly as it appeared. In the blink of an eye, the great trial field returned to normal. Medul turned back into a piglet and jumped into Chen Ying's arms. There were still a few charred spots on his body. Ice Dragon also shrank back to its original size and disappeared in the hexagram that appeared under its feet. The deputy palace master of the magic temple, Lin Chen, lost. When Lin Chen melted in the golden pillar of light and regained consciousness, he couldn't help but shiver because of the cold. He sighed softly and shook his head. Then, he turned and walked towards the magic temple area. Even Li Jingji couldn't blame him. He had already done his best. It was just that his opponent's dual domains were too powerful. Lin Chen was actually not convinced. He thought to himself that if he had broken through to the 9th stage 20 years earlier, he would have been able to transform the Holy Sun spell into a domain and truly display its power. Then, even if he had to face two domains of extreme cold, he might not be at a disadvantage. What a pity! When he thought that the Holy Sun spell might end with him, he could not help but feel sad. Chapter 244. It wasn't easy for Chen Ying to win this match. After the domain of extreme cold ended, her body swayed slightly before she slowly walked towards the resting area. The summoners of the Soul Temple were mesmerized by this match. It turned out that summoning magic could be played like this. Using a summoned beast to cast a domain was something that no one in the Soul Temple could do. Even Chen Hongba, who possessed the Beast Emperor domain, couldn't do it. Chen Ying used her own strength to prove what San Shui Popo had said before. That's right, with her cultivation, San Shui Popo was indeed not her match. As the competition continued, the strength of the Light of Dawn monster hunters was more and more recognized by the experts of the 6 great temples. Among them, Li Jingji felt it the most. He originally thought that among the Light of Dawn monster hunters, only Long Haochen was truly outstanding and strong. At most, there would be Kai Er. However, looking at the current situation, the other members of the Light of Dawn monster hunters were equally tyrannical. Chen Ying-er and Wang Yuanyuan also had domains. Moreover, the power of their domains was quite strong. Li Jingji asked himself if he wanted to defeat them, he would definitely consume a lot of energy. The competition continued. After this round, there were only 24 people left. The competition was particularly exciting. The battle between Chen Ying-er and Lin Chen wasn't the only highlight. The following matches were also very exciting. As the strength of both sides became stronger, the domain abilities also appeared from time to time in the training field. The audience outside the training field was the most enjoyable. If it wasn't for the temple tournament, how could they have seen such strong strength? In the next match of the Light of Dawn Monster Hunters, Han Yu lost. In the third round, the Light of Dawn Monster Hunters' good luck seemed to have run out. He encountered Chen Ying-er's grandfather, Lord of the Soul Temple, Chen Hongba. In the face of the powerful Beast King domain, Han Yu didn't stand a chance at all. However, Han Yu also fully displayed his strength. With the powerful defense of the Guardian Knight, he forcefully resisted the Beast King domain's frenzied attacks for 10 minutes before losing. His companion, the Evil Eye Tyrant, also left a deep impression on everyone. The Tyrant Evil Eye Tyrant was equivalent to a peak rank 8 expert. Its powerful spiritual suppression and control even offset a large portion of the Beast King domain's amplification. Unfortunately, if the Tyrant Evil Eye Tyrant wanted to evolve again, it would require a special opportunity. In terms of mounts, Zhang Fangfang, Han Yu, Yang Wenjiao, and Duan Yi all faced the problem of their mounts evolving to rank 9. Fortunately, Zhang Fangfang, Lin Xian, Sima Xian, and Wang Yuanyuan successfully defeated their respective opponents and passed the third round of the individual competition. Among the Light of Dawn monster hunters, only Long Haochen and Kai Er had yet to compete. Only 4 out of the 24 matches of the third round were left. At this moment, Long Haochen's calm expression changed slightly. In the individual competition of the temple tournament, it was not impossible to draw teammates. Now that there were only 8 people left, there was a certain chance that he and Kai Er would bump into each other. At this thought, Long Haochen couldn't help but recall the scene when he participated in the Monster Hunters tournament. He and Kai Er met and Kai Er chose to give up. Is history going to repeat itself? At the thought of his promise to Lin Xian, he didn't have time to explain to Kai Er and made a decision that deeply hurt Kai Er. Long Haochen's gaze couldn't help but soften. He gently held Kai Er's hand and said in a low voice, "If we meet again, this time, let me admit defeat, okay?" Kai Er was slightly taken aback. Long Haochen, Long Haochen smiled. "Back then, you could clearly beat me, but you gave up. Why can't I give up for you once?" Kai Er chuckled. "Silly, don't joke around. How can the situation now be the same as back then? At that time, it didn't matter to us whether we won or lost. But this time, the outcome is related to our future against the demons. You are the leader of the Light of Dawn, everyone's leader. It seems that we won't have a chance to meet in this round." While the two were talking, a light of choice fell on Kai Er, and another light of choice fell on the assassin temple camp in the distance. The one chosen was Hero Xingyu. Seeing Hero Xingyu's somewhat unwilling expression, Long Haochen couldn't help but laugh. "It seems that a great-grandfather wants to compete with you." Kai Er chuckled and said, "That won't happen." Sure enough, before Kai Er left the stage, Hero Xingyu said in a deep voice, "I admit that I am no match for her. I give up." After saying this, he sat back in his seat and didn't walk out at all. Who would have thought that among the 5 great temples participating in the individual competition, 3 temple masters had already been eliminated in the 3rd round. The easiest to eliminate was Xing Yu. He actually directly admitted defeat and admitted that he was no match for Kai, and this was already the 2nd time he faced Kai in the Assassin Temple. At this time, 6 members of the Light of Dawn had already passed the 3rd round, and one of them had yet to appear. The light of choice shone again. It moved from Kai to Long Haochen, and Long Haochen's opponent was among the Knights Templars. 2 consecutive matches were between the same faction. It was an older knight. He looked a bit older than Long Tianyin. He slowly stood up and nodded at Long Haochen, who was sitting in the back row. His old voice was very powerful. "Let's have a battle between Knight Templars." After saying this, he strode into the arena. Long Haochen subconsciously looked at his grandfather, but Long Tianyin gave him a helpless smile. This surprised him a little. His grandfather's expression was equivalent to telling him that this old knight was not something that Long Tianyin could control. It should be known that the Knight of the Seal had the highest authority among the Knights Templars. Even Long Tianyin could not control the knight, so his status was naturally very high. Long Haochen followed the adamantine knight into the great trial field. He took the initiative to walk forward, away from the old knight. This was the etiquette of a junior to an elder. He couldn't just stand there and wait for the elder to walk away. "My name is Yang Haoyu, an elder who doesn't care about anything." This time, Haohan came. "I thank you on behalf of him and myself. Thank you for saving the only child of our Yang family." As he said this, he gave a knight's etiquette to Long Haochen. Long Haochen finally understood the identity of this old man. He turned out to be the brother of Temple Lord Yang Haohan. From the looks of it, it was very likely that he was the elder brother. No wonder even his grandfather was very respectful to him. Long Haochen hurriedly returned the etiquette. Yang Haoyu stared at Long Haochen with a serious look and said, "I have long heard about you from Haohan and Tianyin. You are very excellent, surpassing your grandfather and father. However, after all, you are still too young. There is no knight in the Knights Templars who gives up. If you want me to recognize everything about you, then it's very simple. Defeat me, please." As he said this, the old knight let out a loud shout. A golden light shone behind him and split into 2. A cloud of golden light came out of the crack and covered Yang Haoyu's body. On Yang Haoyu's body, a layer of golden light instantly spread. In the blink of an eye, a golden armor covered his body. At the same time, 2 swords appeared in his hands. The sharp aura turned into a tangible form. The surrounding golden light shone, making Long Haochen feel as if he was in the starry sky. In this starry sky, there was a powerful beast that was opening its mouth to devour him. Seeing this, in the Magic Temple's resting area, Li Jingji's expression suddenly changed. He cried out involuntarily, "It's him. So he is here. No wonder the Knights Templars didn't even send Long Xingwu. Hasn't he been in closed-door training for almost 50 years? Although Tan Wan had lost the previous round, because this round had not ended, she was still in the Magic Temple's resting area. Hearing this, she couldn't help but ask curiously, "Teacher, who is this person? Is he more powerful than the Knight of the Seal?" Li Jingji always had a smile on his face. Even when he was chosen to fight against Long Tianyin, his expression remained the same. However, this knight in front of him could make his expression change. Clearly, there was something special about him. Li Jingji's expression gradually returned to normal. He said in a deep voice, "In a sense, he is the strongest among the Knights Templars. If he had been recognized by the Throne of God back then, perhaps he could have become the true leader of the 6 major temples. The Temple League wouldn't be as loose as it is now." Tan Wan was shocked. She had never heard her teacher speak so highly of a person. Moreover, it was a knight. Even when it came to Long Haochen, Li Jingji held back, thinking that he was still too young. Li Jingji said, "His name is Yang Haoyu. It can be said that he is a legendary figure. The leader of the Sanctuary Alliance, Yang Haohan, is his younger brother. In a sense, Yang Haohan can also be considered his disciple. From this, you can imagine how powerful he is. He is almost 30 years older than Yang Haohan. When he became famous, Yang Haohan had just joined the Knights Templars. Yang Haoyu is extremely talented and has a strong personality. He was once known as the most kingly knight. He is also a punishment knight. It is said that the only punishment knight of the seal, Long Xingwu, trained according to the punishment knight's classics that he left behind. Yang Haoyu never uses any weapons or equipment because he has a very special magical beast called Starry Sky. This magical beast, in a sense, has already surpassed the category of magical beast. It is in existence beyond the 9th rank. It can transform into any form and assist Yang Haoyu in his training. In the process of training, it can also help him absorb the power of the sun, moon, and stars. In terms of seniority, he is my elder. I don't know when he broke through the 9th rank, but he once did an unprecedented feat in the history of the Knights Templars. He refused to become a Knight of the Seal. What? Tan Wan cried out in shock. How is that possible? Becoming a Knight of the Seal means owning a divine artifact and becoming the leader of the Knights Templars. Li Jingji sighed and said, "Of course Yang Haoyu knew this, but he was too arrogant. He had a Starry Sky divine beast that surpassed the 9th rank. When he came to the throne of God, he immediately obtained the recognition of several throne of God. If he had chosen at that time, he could immediately become a Knight of the Seal. However, he did not do so. Instead, he made a request to the most powerful throne of God, the eternal and creation throne of God, which has never been used by anyone. In the end, he was rejected by the eternal and creation throne of God, and he did not choose another throne of God. After being given the title of Starry Sky Divine Knight by the Knights Templars, he began to cultivate in seclusion. It was said that he tried to obtain the recognition of the eternal and creation throne of God, but he did not succeed in the end. Because he cultivated in seclusion for too long, he had long faded out of the sight of the higher-ups of the 6 temples. I did not expect that Yang Haohan would actually invite him for this year's temple tournament. At this point, Li Jingji's expression was slightly desolate. He said, "It seems that I was still too confident." The foundation of the Knights Templars, Tan Wan was a little unconvinced. "Teacher, do you think he can defeat you?" Li Jingji shook his head and said, "If I were to go against him, my chances of winning would not be more than 50%. Moreover, this is under the situation where there are no restrictions and I can use my equipment. Just wait and see. He will let you see how powerful the Starlight Beast is. It was once known as the #1 godly beast in the universe, and Yang Haoyu is even the chief elder of the Knights Templars. This time, Long Haochen should be able to learn a deep lesson. However, this is also good. He is too young. For young people, sometimes, failure is the best experience." If Long Haochen could hear Li Jingji's words now, he would definitely agree with him. That was because he had already suffered the heaviest blow, and he had given up his life for it. But now, after being reborn, he had already washed away all his troubles, and his heart was as calm as still water. Long Haochen did not know that Yang Haoyu had such a glorious history. When he saw the armor and weapon appearing on Yang Haoyu's body, he could not help but be shocked. However, his expression quickly returned to normal. In front of him, a golden hexagram appeared. He did not know about Yang Haoyu's glory, but he could feel the great threat that Yang Haoyu posed. Without the assistance of a mount, he did not have the confidence to defeat this powerful knight. The golden hexagram that appeared in front of Long Haochen was very peaceful. As the golden light shone, the lines that outlined the hexagram gradually emitted a 7-colored halo. The 7-colored halo was a representation of a state. In a sense, it was equivalent to the existence of a godly weapon. Then, a tall figure appeared in front of Long Haochen. It was more than 4 meters long and more than 2 meters tall. A pair of huge wings spread out on both sides of its body. Its entire body was bright gold, and its entire body emitted a 7-colored halo. The horn on its head was also completely 7-colored. As soon as it appeared, the light elements in the great trial grounds surged wildly. Ribbons of 7-colored light could be seen circling around its body. The starlight that originally appeared in the air was chased out of the range of the 7-colored halo. Holy unicorn? Yang Haoyu was also shocked when he saw the magical beast that appeared in front of Long Haochen. In the legends there were several kinds of magical beasts that were known as the best mounts for a knight, and the knight who owned such a mount could be named after them. Among them, the first ranked was the Holy Dragon Knight, followed by the Holy Unicorn Knight, and then the Dragon Knight, and so on. For the Holy Unicorn to be ranked second, it could be seen how much it increased the knight's prestige and glory. Yang Haoyu was known as the Holy Star Knight because of his mount. However, there were no records of the Holy Star Beast in ancient times. Therefore, it did not belong to the original title of a mount. The knight's ranking was due to the strength of the starry sky itself. It was added later, but the Holy Unicorn that Long Haochen had summoned was the true existence that ranked second. Long Haochen's figure flashed, and he was already sitting on the back of the Holy Unicorn. Suddenly, the Holy Unicorn's body emitted a 7-colored halo that dyed Long Haochen's body in 7 different colors. There was a faint halo of light on the surface of Long Haochen's body. In ancient times there was a legend. In the hearts of young girls, the ideal lover had to tread on a 7-colored cloud and wear a holy golden armor. This so-called 7-colored cloud referred to the Holy Unicorn. As for what the holy golden armor was, humans no longer knew. But in a sense, the throne of God could definitely be counted as such, right? No one knew how many years it had been since a holy unicorn had appeared. It had long since gone extinct within the holy demon continent. No one thought that Long Haochen would actually summon such a mount to assist him in battle. Although he couldn't use equipment, that didn't prevent the mount from assisting him. After a brief moment of surprise, Yang Haoyu's expression had returned to normal. However, he did not rush to attack. Instead, he turned to the Knights Templars' VIP stand and said, "Chief Inquisitor, I have a request. Because I am a magical beast, I never use weapons or equipment. My ability has nothing to do with equipment. Therefore, if I summon my companion, I will obviously have the upper hand in this battle. Therefore, I ask for the Chief Inquisitor's special permission to allow Long Haochen to use all of his equipment in this battle." As soon as these words came out, the entire audience was shocked. Yang Haoyu clearly knew that Long Haochen had summoned the Holy Unicorn, which had the second highest compatibility with the knight. Yet, Yang Haoyu still asked him to use his equipment. What kind of confidence was this? Obviously, he believed that Long Haochen was far from being his opponent in this state. In the Knights Templars' resting area, the members of Light of Dawn heard Yang Haoyu's words and their expressions became strange. Lin Xian couldn't help but say, "Isn't this old knight a little too confident? Didn't he see the light god's domain that boss used before?" Long Tianyin glanced at him and said faintly, "It's good for young people to be confident, but don't be blindly arrogant. Although Haochen is excellent, I'm not optimistic about him in this match. Did you know that as early as 50 years ago, Brother Yang was already a star holy knight who was equally famous as Senior Chen Zidian? In terms of individual strength, he even surpassed Senior Chen Zidian. Although he wasn't a Knight of the Seal, he had always been the strongest Knights Templars. If it wasn't for the importance of this temple tournament, we wouldn't have been able to invite Brother Yang to fight. Haochen's father, who is my son, Long Xingwu, can only be regarded as Brother Yang's in-name disciple at most." After listening to Long Tianyin, the members of Light of Dawn Monster Hunters realized how powerful Long Haochen was going to be facing. The Knight of the Seal was only his in-name disciple, but he was even stronger than the legendary Chen Zidian. What kind of luck did boss have? Long Tianyin said faintly, I'm not afraid to tell you now. I'm not sure if Li Jingji has successfully broken through, but before Li Jingji, there was only one person in the entire Temple League who broke through the 4th rank of the 9th Order, and that was the Star Holy Knight of our Knights Templars. As soon as this statement came out, the members of Light of Dawn Monster Hunters couldn't help but be shocked. Among them, except for Duan Yi and Yang Wenjiao, the others had also entered the 9th Order. After truly entering the 9th Order, they deeply understood how difficult it was to cultivate after the 9th Order. Almost every increase in spiritual energy by 100 points, they would encounter a bottleneck. What did it mean to break through the 4th rank of the 9th Order? It meant that Yang Haoyu's internal spiritual energy had exceeded 400,000, and they were well aware of Long Haochen's cultivation. He was at the 2nd rank of the 9th Order and was stuck at the bottleneck of advancing to the 3rd rank. But because he had the Heart of Eternity, his internal spiritual energy was 90,000 more than ordinary 9th Order powerhouses, so his internal spiritual energy was more than 290,000. However, after all, he was only at the peak of the 2nd rank and had not yet entered the 3rd rank, while Yang Haoyu had already entered the 5th rank. Above the 9th Order, the gap between each level was huge, and there would be many variables. It could be said that the energy needed to break through each level above the 9th Order was definitely not as easy as cultivating from a beginner to the 9th Order. However, after a short period of shock, the people of the Light of Dawn Monster Hunters quickly calmed down and sat there looking at the great trial field. Long Tianyin was surprised to find that on the faces of these young people, he saw confidence and persistence. After knowing Yang Haoyu's strength, they could still be so confident. This meant that, to a certain extent, Long Haochen had already become a belief in their hearts. Under the influence of this persistent belief, they had no doubt that Haochen would win. In this case, special permission is granted for Long Haochen to use the equipment. Chen Zidian's response was very quick. In a situation where most people thought that the chief referee would not agree, he actually agreed. The slightly younger higher-ups of the 6th Great Temple were very puzzled. The temple competition was based on fairness. Allowing Long Haochen to use the equipment, would it be fair to the other contestants? On the other hand, the older powerhouses were looking deeply at Yang Haoyu. Even if they had not seen the legendary Star Holy Knight before, they had heard of his stories. Long Haochen had already defeated Qiu Yonghao. Now, as the representative of the younger generation, he would be facing the Star Holy Knight. In this competition, it was no longer important for the knight to win or lose. What was important was that the hearts of many people who had been roped in by the magic temple had already changed. The Knights Templars had a powerhouse like the Star Holy Knight, and a young genius like Long Haochen. Their ruling position could not be replaced by the magic temple. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that. Although Li Jingji was excellent and had been planning for a long time, he had already lost. He had lost to Yang Haohan, who had not participated in this temple competition, but was the previous leader of the Temple League. Yang Haohan was the real schemer. After receiving Chen Zidian's confirmation, Yang Haoyu nodded at Long Haochen and said, "All right, you can put on the equipment now." "Thank you, Senior." Long Haochen nodded and jumped down. He stepped on the fine gold pedestal, and the shining orange-red armor instantly appeared on his body. When he jumped back onto the back of the Holy Unicorn, there was also a heavy sword in each of his hands. The heavy sword in his left hand shone with a white light amidst the dark green brilliance, while the heavy sword in his right hand shone with 7 colors amidst the golden red brilliance. It was Blue Rain, Hibiscus of Light and Aria of the Goddess of Light. Looking at Long Haochen, who was fully equipped, Yang Haoyu's eyes unconsciously revealed a hint of admiration. He admired Long Haochen's calmness. If it were any other young man who had achieved such an achievement at Long Haochen's age, they would definitely be proud and arrogant. In this temple competition, in front of so many powerhouses, Yang Haoyu asked Long Haochen to put on the equipment and fight. This was undoubtedly a form of contempt. However, after receiving permission from the chief referee Chen Zidian, Long Haochen put on the equipment without being arrogant or rash. His gaze was calm, and his emotions did not change at all. This calmness was far beyond what someone his age could possess. "Senior, please advise me." Long Haochen tapped his left shoulder with the aria of the Goddess of Light in his right hand, indicating to Yang Haoyu. Yang Haoyu nodded slightly, pointed the heavy sword in his hands towards the ground, and said indifferently, "Let's begin." Following his words, the two of them shone with light at almost the same time. A vast golden light burst out from Long Haochen's body, accompanied by a sweet-sounding voice, as if it was going to fill the entire great trial field like when he was facing Qiu Yonghao. However, Yang Haoyu's body also burst out with a bright light. It was also golden, but different from Long Haochen's. After his golden light burst out, it appeared in the night sky. With Yang Haoyu's body as the center, the surrounding space turned into a starry sky, as if he had moved the starry sky here. In this starry sky, there were countless golden light spots, with strange spiritual energy fluctuations, forcibly resisting Long Haochen's God of Light domain. The two domains formed a pushing force, causing the distance between them to increase. On one side was a vast and pure golden light, and on the other side was a mysterious and endless starry sky. After the two domains appeared, there was a clear distinction between them. Yang Haoyu's indifferent voice sounded, "Your God of Light domain is built from the affinity and understanding of the favored ones towards light, but my light originates from the starry sky, and does not belong to this world, nor is it under the control of this world's God of Light. Therefore, you can't deprive me of my light. This is my star domain, take a blow from my stars." As he spoke, Yang Haoyu suddenly raised the heavy sword in his right hand, and pointed it towards Long Haochen. Suddenly, thousands of starlight burst out from his domain, gathering at the tip of the sword, and then turned into a straight golden light, blasting straight towards Long Haochen. Turning the power of the stars for his own use, this was Yang Haoyu's unique law of stars. The starlight seemed very peaceful, but when it entered Long Haochen's God of Light domain, it did not seem to be affected at all. In the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of Long Haochen. Long Haochen did not attack. The huge 6 wings on his back unfolded at the same time, and the blue rain, hibiscus of light in his left hand suddenly disappeared. A small colorful shield replaced the position of the blue rain, hibiscus of light in front of him. Ding! The moment the starlight fell on the Sun-Moon Divine Snail shield, it actually produced a metallic clanging sound. Long Haochen had already used divine defense, but at this moment, he felt as if he had been hit by a star head-on. In an instant, the Sun-Moon Divine Snail shield shone brightly with colorful golden light. One could clearly see that on Long Haochen's chest, a ball of golden light was beating violently. It was the Heart of Eternity. When he was fighting with Qiu Yonghao, Long Haochen had used the Heart of Eternity to beat his opponent back with one punch. At this moment, every time the Heart of Eternity beat, his spiritual power would recover rapidly, and the colorful golden light on the Sun-Moon Divine Snail shield became even more intense. The God of Light domain turned into circles of golden halos, and they converged towards Long Haochen's body. The space in the great trial field seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. On the VIP platform, as the chief referee, Chen Zidian, had a solemn look on his face. With him as the leader, all the referees were injecting spiritual power into the shield with all their might to maintain its stability. The ray of starlight finally weakened, and Long Haochen's body was pressed tightly against the shield. What a powerful attack! In order to resist this ray of starlight, Long Haochen had used almost all his strength. He really did not expect Yang Haoyu's strength to reach such a level. Perhaps he could not be compared to the Demon Emperor, but he was definitely at the level of the Moon Demon and the Star Demon. Yang Haoyu smiled and said, "Interesting. This is not your full strength. Let me see where your limit is." In his star field, thousands of starlights appeared again. He raised both his swords at the same time and drew a mysterious trajectory in the air. Finally, the thousands of starlights turned into 9 spots. The 9 spots rotated in the air, and then condensed into one, turning into a white and flawless starlight. It attacked Long Houchen. As soon as this white starlight entered the God of Light domain, it immediately stirred up Long Houchen's domain, causing it to fluctuate violently, as if it wanted to tear his God of Light domain apart. This attack had the power to change the color of heaven and earth. Long Houchen's expression was very dignified. The holy unicorn under him let out a long neigh, and a strange layer of 7-colored light was released from its horn, spreading outwards. Long Houchen did not continue to use the shield like before, but instead closed his eyes, and the heart of eternity in his chest began to beat violently. With the holy unicorn's buff, Long Houchen's entire body was dyed with 7 colors, and the fluctuations of the God of Light domain suddenly became strange. The golden light retracted and instantly returned to a diameter of 10 meters around his body, pulsing rhythmically with the heart of eternity. It was as if the entire God of Light domain had become the extension and expansion of his heart of eternity. At the same time, as the domain weakened, other than Long Houchen's God of Light domain, the rest of the great trial field was covered by the star field. It seemed that Long Houchen had been suppressed to the limit. However, when the pure white starlight came into contact with the shrinking light God domain again, it was met with strong resistance. It only managed to go a little deeper before it stopped in the light God domain's heartbeat. With every fluctuation of the light God domain, the pure white starlight was clearly weakened. The white color on it gradually disappeared and turned into a golden color. The golden color also gradually faded, and in the end, it turned into countless sparkling starlight. Only then did Long Houchen open his eyes, and his right hand made a slashing motion with the aria of the Goddess of Light. "Senior, please receive a strike from me." The aria of the Goddess of Light turned into a dazzling golden color in an instant. The golden light of the Light God's domain turned into halos and gathered around it. Long Houchen waved his right hand and a golden blade of light separated from the sword and slowly flew forward. The starlight that Yang Haoyu had unleashed earlier was instantly destroyed and scattered in all directions. After the golden blade of light destroyed the starlight, it continued to fly forward, and its color actually changed from gold to white. What was even more strange was that wherever the blade of light passed, a pleasant sound rang out. That sound gave off a peaceful and serene feeling to anyone who heard it. On the back of the blade of light, there were even 2 pure white wings. Yang Haoyu's expression turned serious for the first time. He raised the heavy sword in his right hand, and all the starlight in the star field lit up. The white blade of light seemed to enter the star field as soon as it left the God of Light domain, and it didn't seem to encounter any obstructions wherever it passed. A ray of light shot out from the nearest star and landed on the white blade of light. A strange scene appeared. After the white blade of light received the impact, its speed decreased again, but it increased in size, and the starlight shattered. This was the first time Yang Haoyu had encountered such a situation. He raised the heavy sword in his right hand and slashed through the void. Thousands of starlight immediately condensed into a huge blade of light, and it slashed towards Long Houchen's seemingly light sword. The 2 blades of light, which were completely disproportionate in size, collided in the air, and a magical scene ensued. It seemed that Long Houchen's blade of light should have been instantly destroyed, but in fact, after the 2 blades of light came into contact, they were in a stalemate. The 2 blades of light stopped in midair at the same time. The huge blade of light, which was surrounded by starlight, slowly collided, suppressing Long Houchen's small blade of light and forcing it to retreat slowly. However, during this process, the small blade of light gradually grew larger, while the large blade of light gradually shrank. Moreover, the speed at which the small blade of light was retreating gradually decreased. "Disintegrate, break!" Yang Haoyu shouted and swung both his swords downwards at the same time. A loud rumble resounded, and the star field shook violently. The blade of light that he had released was instantly shattered, turning into countless specks of starlight that shot out in all directions. Meanwhile, the blade of light that Long Haochen had released was also shattered by the powerful explosive force, turning into countless specks of white light. However, the specks of white light did not dissipate. Instead, they quietly flew back and integrated into Long Haochen's God of Light domain. The violent beating of the heart resounded throughout the entire area. At the moment when the specks of white light retreated, the God of Light domain launched a counterattack against the star field, suppressing the star field back to its original range with an astonishing force. The situation of each side occupying half of the sky reappeared. Chapter 245. At this time, the experts who were watching the battle were completely stunned. Even Li Jingji, who had a high understanding of the elements, could not understand what had happened in the battle between Long Haochen and Yang Haoyu. The only one who could really see some clues was the legendary Almighty Chen Zidian. At this time, his face was full of admiration. Yang Haoyu did not continue to attack. He looked at Long Haochen and asked with a puzzled expression, "How did you do it? With your cultivation and understanding of the domain, you should not be able to resist my star domain." It seemed that the two of them were constantly attacking, but in fact, the competition between them was at the level of the domain. Yang Haoyu's attack was the domain, and Long Haochen's defense was the Sun-Moon Divine Snail Shield. The second time, he used the power of the domain, including the small light blade he released at the end, which was also the power of the domain. The full-scale collision of the domains ended with Yang Haoyu retreating. Although there was no clear winner, Yang Haoyu still suffered a slight loss. Long Haochen smiled and said, "Senior Star Domain is an eye-opener for me. It is indeed the strongest domain I have ever seen, and it is indeed not bound by the Light God's laws. However, there is one thing you have forgotten. Starlight is also light. No matter how large the power of the stars is, its essence also contains a large amount of light. Just like your own ability, which is also dominated by light, my Light God's domain has a very good integration effect with all light. Therefore, I used the light in your domain, integrated it, and transformed it into my power to fight against your domain. In a sense, I borrowed a part of your power to fight against you." There was a look of surprise in Yang Haoyu's eyes. He slowly nodded and said, "What a good Light God's domain! In terms of the quality of the domain, your domain is indeed half a notch higher than my star domain. In time, when it is completed, it can also compete with the Demon Emperor's dark prison. However, this competition has just begun. Your domain should not have been formed for long. If you want to fight against my star domain, you need to show more. My star field doesn't just belong to me, but it was produced after I fused with the divine beast of the starry sky. Therefore, in a sense, my star field is actually a mutated star field, equivalent to the result of the fusion of two star fields. All of my abilities are also related to the starry sky. What you just faced was only the most basic ability of the star field. Next, I will increase the pressure." Yang Haoyu's attitude was completely that of a senior giving advice to a junior. Long Haochen's expression also became more and more respectful. Yes, his cultivation had been raised to a very strong level, but after all, the time he had been promoted to the Stage 9 was still very short. He was far from rich in the ability and experience of a Stage 9 powerhouse. When facing an opponent whose cultivation was lower than his, he could naturally deal with it calmly. But if it was an opponent who was stronger than him, it would be a little difficult to deal with. If Yang Haoyu used his strongest attack right from the start, then Long Haochen might not be able to withstand it. However, he was gradually increasing the pressure. This would give Long Haochen extremely valuable domain combat experience. At the same time, under such strong pressure, It would also be of great benefit to Long Houchen's future cultivation. Senior, please give me some pointers. Long Houchen once again used the aria of the Goddess of Light to knock on his shoulder as a salute. Yang Haoyu returned the salute, and slowly raised the heavy sword in his right hand in the air. He said in a deep voice, "Next, I will begin to use my own domain skill. This is an original creation that I have combined the ability of the Star Beast, the Star Soul Explosion. You have to be careful. Also, let me see how much of my light your light god domain can fuse with in this situation." As he spoke, Yang Haoyu's heavy sword in his right hand had already pointed at a star. Suddenly, the star completely lit up, and the other stars dimmed. This star had a pale golden tail flame, and actually rushed directly towards Long Houchen. Star Soul Explosion? This was the first time Long Houchen had heard of this term, but he knew about domain skills. Yang Haoyu had already told him that he was using a domain skill, so how could Long Houchen not be careful? This was a battle between domains. If he used other abilities, it would mean that his domain had lost. Even though Long Houchen's light god domain had only been activated not long ago, he was not willing to let his domain be at a disadvantage. If that was the case, it would definitely have a huge impact on his future cultivation of domains. With the aria of the Goddess of Light in front of him, countless rings of light once again gathered towards the aria of the Goddess of Light. The colorful golden light emitted by the Holy Unicorn also became more and more intense. Through the heart of eternity, Long Houchen's control over his domain was still lacking. The level of the light god domain could be said to be at the peak of all domains. If he wanted to control a domain of this level, the amount of spiritual power needed was absolutely astronomical. Long Houchen had to rely on the Holy Unicorn's amplification in order to control the domain as if it was his own arm. Of course, as he gained a deeper understanding of the light god domain, this situation would improve. Until he completely fused with the light god domain and made the light god domain a part of him, he would also become a part of the light god domain. Only then would he be able to fully control it, just like Yang Haoyu's control over the star domain. The gathered light of the domain circled around the aria of the Goddess of Light. A light bulb lit up in Long Houchen's heart. The aria of the Goddess of Light moved forward, and the previously condensed rings of light spread out in the opposite direction, shrouding the incoming star. The speed of the star's flight continued to increase in the star domain. It was about to enter the light god domain, but at this moment, the aria of the Goddess of Light guided the rings of light to meet it, and suddenly stopped its forward momentum. Something unexpected happened. The slowed star suddenly froze, and all the light was gathered. So much so that Long Houchen's light god domain failed to absorb its light. At the next moment, the star suddenly exploded. Rumble, the violent roar, not only resounded through the entire Sanctuary Alliance's great trial ground, but also the entire sacred city. At the moment when the roar erupted, the shield of the Sanctuary Alliance's great trial ground shook violently. Large cracks appeared in every corner of the shield at the same time, and it looked like it could shatter at any time. At this moment, a Sanskrit chant echoed and a golden light suddenly appeared at the top of the shield. After this golden light appeared, countless streams of golden light shrouded the shield and fused with the seven-colored light of the shield, causing the seven-colored shield to become eight-colored. This stabilized the situation and prevented the shield of the great trial field from breaking. His spirit core, that ball of golden light, was Chen Zidian's spirit core. He couldn't casually use his domain, or else it would affect the others in the trial field. Thus, he could only use his own spirit core to stabilize the defense of the trial field. In the great trial field, after the star exploded, Long Houchen and the Holy Unicorn were suddenly blown away. In midair, Long Houchen spat out a mouthful of blood. His light god domain was also violently shaken and almost shattered. This explosive force was really terrifying. Was this the power of a domain technique? Long Houchen's internal spiritual force was as high as 290,000. With the addition of the Golden Foundation armor and the Holy Unicorn's holy light, the total amount of spiritual force he could mobilize was more than 400,000. Although he wasn't at rank 4, the amount of spiritual force he could mobilize was not a small amount. However, in the face of this explosion, he felt like his 7 orifices were sealed and his 6 senses were deprived. Not only was his body shaken, but even his soul was affected. Was this the starry sky spirit explosion technique? At this time, Long Houchen's heart was filled with a strong sense of relief. He didn't expect Yang Haoyu's domain to be so powerful. In the confrontation with Yang Haoyu, because he wasn't familiar with the other party, and the other party was a powerhouse of the Knights Templars, Long Houchen maintained an attitude of testing the other party. This was why he chose to use the Sun Moon Divine Snail shield to withstand the Star Domain attack for the first time instead of resisting it with the domain power. It was the same at this time. He really wanted to try out the power of a domain technique. It was proven that the destructive power of a domain technique was far above that of a forbidden spell. If the star exploded just now, without the shield of the Sanctuary Alliance's great trial field, perhaps the entire holy city would have been destroyed. However, Long Houchen wasn't discouraged because of this. On the contrary, in the face of the huge pressure, something in his body awakened. He took a deep breath and stabilized his body. Facing Yang Haoyu from afar, Long Houchen didn't wipe the blood at the corner of his mouth. His gaze became calmer. The light god domain was once again suppressed to a diameter of 10 meters around his body. Long Houchen took a deep breath, as if he wanted to absorb all the light into his body. The 2 swords in his hands slowly came together above his head. When the 2 swords met, a faint blue light flashed. Immediately after, the blue light turned into a rainbow color, and then into a scorching white color. Back then, he had relied on the power of the twin swords' harmonization to make the demon god Emperor sigh in admiration. However, this twin swords harmonization was only used to control his light god domain. A layer of strange white light instantly burst out from Hebai's 2 swords, fusing with the light god domain. At this moment, Yang Haoyu's face revealed a look of shock for the first time. This was because the aura of Long Houchen's light god domain had changed. Every domain had its own unique aura. For example, Yang Haoyu's star domain had a mysterious and boundless aura. As for Long Houchen's light god domain, its original aura was vast and boundless. It was an endless light, pure and gentle. However, at this moment, the aura of the light god domain had undergone a miraculous change. The golden domain had turned white. After a short period of dominance, the scorching white color became gentle again. An aura that Yang Haoyu was somewhat familiar with appeared. That was life, that was creation. Yes, Long Houchen had used the dual sword combination to trigger a state similar to evolution in his light god domain. The white domain gave off a feeling of life and creation. This was the aura of life and creation produced by the fusion of light and water. The light god domain amplified this characteristic by hundreds or even thousands of times, causing its own aura to change accordingly. Life and creation, these were the new mysteries of the light god domain. Long Houchen's eyes also turned scorching white. He held the life and creation swords with both hands and slowly pointed them forward. His light god domain suddenly expanded again. Wherever it passed, the star domain was unable to resist and was forced to retreat. Yang Haoyu waved his right hand. This time, 2 stars flew towards Long Houchen. Once these 2 stars exploded, their power would definitely increase exponentially. As the white light flowed, Long Houchen's light god domain suddenly began to revolve slowly. White ribbons of light stretched out. When the 2 stars arrived in front of the light god domain, 2 ribbons of light immediately spread out and gently enveloped the 2 stars. Yang Haoyu immediately discovered that he had lost contact with these 2 stars. The starry sky spirit explosion could only be detonated after coming into contact with the opponent's ability. When detonating, the explosive force would appear at the core of the opponent's ability. It was impossible to detonate it in advance. At that time, the stars would still be in the star domain, which was equivalent to attacking oneself. However, when his stars came into contact with Long Houchen's light god domain, they actually lost contact and could not detonate. This meant that his starry sky spirit explosion had been destroyed by Long Houchen. At this moment, Yang Haoyu's eyes were filled with shock. He had never imagined that Long Houchen would be able to rely on the evolution of his domain to destroy his domain. Long Houchen's cultivation direction was slightly different from Kai Er's. Kai Er's direction was more focused on the development of domain skills. This was because she had inherited the purification power of the Grim Reaper. Domain skills could greatly increase her attack power. As for Long Houchen, after fusing with Electrolux, son of light physique, he had completely become a part of light. The profound meaning of light was not killing and fighting, but the creation and life that light brought. It was precisely because he had found its true meaning that Long Houchen had chosen this path for himself. That was the path of evolution of his domain. At this moment, he was displaying the second form of the light god domain, which was also the evolved form. Life and creation were both inevitable and coincidental to everything. Using the wonderful changes and connections between inevitability and coincidences, he could resolve some abilities that were beyond the scope of light. The starry sky spirit explosion was indeed powerful, and Long Houchen could not resist it. However, through the evolved light god domain, he had the ability to interrupt the starry sky spirit explosion. Even his star domain had been affected by the laws of life and creation during the expansion of the light god domain, causing it to collapse slightly. Yang Haoyu knew that he had still underestimated this young man. His understanding of domains might not be deep enough, but he had a unique talent. His understanding of light had far surpassed Yang Haoyu's, and he had integrated this understanding into his domain, thus completing the evolution of his domain. Chapter 246. Yang Haoyu's eyes were full of admiration. He understood that as long as this young man was given some time, he would definitely surpass him. What a good life and creation! Then, let our domains have a final confrontation. As he spoke, Yang Haoyu slowly raised his right hand and pointed to the sky. His starry domain shrank for the first time, but during the process, stars were constantly released, and the expansion speed of Long Houchen's light god domain was greatly affected. Even a successful starry sky spirit explosion technique would have a great impact on him. Therefore, he could only slowly dissolve the power of these stars. In the shrinking starry domain, more stars gathered towards Yang Haoyu, falling into his golden armor. His golden armor was gorgeous to begin with, but it became unprecedentedly dazzling when it was embedded with gems formed from the stars. "Domain as me!" Li Jingji exclaimed, his eyes filled with shock. After the shock, he became dejected. He knew that there was still an insurmountable gap between him and Yang Haoyu. Li Jingji's biggest advantage in this year's temple tournament was that he had broken through to the 4th rank of the 9th order. His internal spiritual energy had exceeded 400,000, and not only that, he also had 2 powerful domain skills. However, when he saw the ability displayed by Yang Haoyu at this time, he knew that there was still an insurmountable gap between him and this legendary starry sky holy knight. Domain as me. This was the characteristic of the 5th rank of the 9th order, and also the symbol of a 9th order powerhouse entering a higher realm. At this moment, the domain was Yang Haoyu, and Yang Haoyu was his domain. Completely integrating the power of the domain with his body, he had already reached the realm of immortality. Of course, it was not true immortality, but if one could reach the level of domain as me, then the life of a human powerhouse could also be extended to more than 500 years. This was something that Chen Zidian could not achieve, but it appeared on Yang Haoyu. Long Haochen's light god domain gradually enveloped Yang Haoyu. A faint smile appeared on Yang Haoyu's face. His domain had completely fused with his body. It was as if he had fallen into Long Haochen's light god domain. The two swords parted, and a path immediately appeared in front of Yang Haoyu. Even the light god's domain, which had already completed its evolution, split apart by itself in front of his two swords. The two swords in his hands had already become transparent, just like the armor on his body. Starlight flickered, and he was the endless night sky. Crisscrossing cross/, the strange starlight cross flew towards Long Haochen through the tunnel he tore open. Unexpectedly, the light god's domain was unable to close. The flying speed of the starlight cross was very slow, but the huge pressure it produced made Long Haochen's fine gold foundation battlesuit crackle. Countless cracks began to appear on the fine gold foundation battlesuit. This epic equipment could no longer withstand this level of pressure. The holy unicorn spread its wings, a look of pain in its eyes. Under the huge pressure, its head was forced to lower, and the divine light released by its horn became much weaker. This holy unicorn was naturally an evolution of the Star King, along with the improvement of Long Haochen's cultivation. It did not have its own domain, and in the confrontation between Long Haochen and Yang Haoyu, its role had been suppressed to a minimum by the star domain. Yang Haoyu's attack was already the pinnacle of his own domain. He compressed his domain into a skill. In this crisscrossing cross/, it could be said to contain the infinite starry sky explosion. Even if the light god's domain evolved to the realm of life and creation, it could not dissolve such a powerful domain. This was no longer a difference in the quality of the domain, but a difference in the cultivation of the two sides. Ding! With a soft sound, Long Haochen instantly chose to give up the fine gold foundation battlesuit, turning it back into a fine gold foundation battlesuit and falling down. If he did not remove it, the fine gold foundation battlesuit would be destroyed forever. Without the protection of the armor, Long Haochen's situation became even more precarious. The huge pressure made it impossible for him to lower the sword of life and creation that he was holding in his hands. This was the true strength of the Star Holy Knight. It could be said that all the previous battles were equivalent to Yang Haoyu giving Long Haochen pointers to enhance his experience in fighting against stronger opponents. Yang Haoyu's starlight cross/ could have been even faster and directly blasted towards Long Haochen, but he deliberately reduced the speed of his attack and increased the pressure to the maximum. The greater the pressure, the stronger the rebound. With Long Haochen's cultivation, it was very difficult for him to withstand this kind of pressure. There was no doubt that Yang Haoyu was using his powerful strength to force Long Haochen to make a breakthrough. This experience would be indescribably beneficial to his future. Facing the destructive pressure, Long Haochen's body trembled slightly in the air. After the fusion, the sword of life and creation let out a clear and impassioned sound like a dragon's roar. The starlight cross/ was getting closer and closer to Long Haochen, but he still could not effectively block it. He could not even change his movements. Yang Haoyu sighed in his heart. He thought to himself, "Am I asking too much of this child? He's not even 30 years old, and he can already complete a domain evolution. What else do I have to ask of him?" Under the immense pressure, blood started to seep out of Long Haochen's mouth and nose. If this continued, his life would be in danger. Just as Yang Haoyu was about to end his attack, he suddenly saw Long Haochen's eyes. His golden eyes were still clear. Under such heavy pressure, his emotions were still calm. There was even a hint of gentleness in his eyes, and that gentleness also contained a hint of persistence. He hasn't given up. This was Yang Haoyu's first reaction. At this moment, he saw a layer of purple in Long Haochen's eyes. Purplish gold light erupted from his eyes almost instantly, and 9 purple light patterns appeared on his forehead. A tsunami of purplish gold light expanded from Long Haochen's back just like that. The evolved light god's domain, which was originally white, instantly turned purplish gold. The aura of life and creation disappeared, and in its place was a supreme majesty and endless intent of destruction. In that instant, Long Houchen's temperament changed. The only thing that didn't change was his gentle and calm gaze. A huge phantom appeared behind Long Houchen. It wasn't the goddess of light. After he absorbed Electrolux's essence as the Son of Light, he could no longer use the god's descent technique. This was because his spiritual power was already at the light god's level, and he was in existence on the same level as the goddess of light. This huge phantom was purple, and it was crystal clear. Its 6 huge heads were raised high, and on each side of the 6 heads, there was a huge bulge that was almost level with the 6th head. Its huge body gradually turned from illusory to solid, and its huge wings spread out, covering Long Houchen's purplish gold light god's domain. It burst forth with unparalleled nobility and majesty. Yes, it had come. When Long Houchen was facing heavy pressure and was on the brink of death, its bloodline had summoned it. Roar! A monstrous roar sounded behind Long Houchen. A dense purple aura bloomed and turned into a purple halo that blew towards Yang Haoyu. A shocking scene appeared. Everywhere the purple light passed, everything around Long Houchen turned purplish gold, while the starlight cross slash stopped in the air. It was shocking to see that, be it the starlight cross slash or the passage that Yang Haoyu had torn open, countless starlights were peeled away as the purple light spread. Yang Haoyu's 2 swords changed continuously, and rays of starlight interweaved in the air to form a magnificent star map. However, it seemed to be useless in front of the purple halo, and the star map was blown away. When the purple light affected Yang Haoyu, his body trembled violently, and an illusory cloud of light was peeled away from his body and floated backwards. The sword of life and creation in Long Houchen's hand finally fell, and it slashed at the starlight cross slash, whose power had been greatly reduced. A crisp cracking sound was heard, and the starlight cross slash was broken. Under the guidance of Qi, Long Houchen stepped out of the void, and the huge light shadow behind him instantly melted into his body like rivers flowing into the sea, turning into a magnificent purplish gold armor. However, this purplish gold armor was too domineering. When it swept over Long Houchen's body, it actually shook the holy unicorn away. Strangely enough, in the face of such a situation, the holy unicorn didn't even have the slightest intention of resisting. It stepped on the 7-colored hexagram and quietly disappeared. If anyone had been paying attention, they would have noticed that when the huge purple figure appeared, the eyes of the holy unicorn, an ancient mutant, were filled with fear. In contrast to the magnificent purplish gold armor that Long Houchen was wearing, Yang Haoyu's starlight armor and the 2 swords in his hands had actually disappeared. That roar just now, a ball of purple halo, had actually forcefully stripped away the connection between him and the starlight mythological beast. At this moment, Yang Haoyu's expression changed. Second evolution. He actually completed the 2nd evolution of his domain. This was impossible, even as an expert at the 5th rank of the 9th rank. He could not do this. At the very least, he would need to be at the 6th rank of the 9th rank, or even the 7th rank of the 9th rank to achieve this. He could feel his companion trembling. The purple halo actually made the starlight mythological beast, known as the number 1 mythological beast under the starry sky, tremble in fear. Ever since he formed a contract with the starlight mythological beast, this was the first time Yang Haoyu had encountered such a situation. Long Houchen had been suppressed since the start of the match. Now that the pressure had been lifted, he almost subconsciously launched an attack under the guidance of the Qi. At this time, the light god domain was in a special state. In fact, it was not a 2nd evolution, but like Long Houchen himself, it was covered with a layer of armor. This armor was the power of Haoyu. That purple figure with 6 big heads had disappeared for 5 years. Wasn't it Haoyu who had almost died because of Long Houchen? That thick purple halo was the power of Haoyue's bloodline. More than 4 years had passed. Long Haochen's cultivation had been promoted to the 2nd rank of the 9th rank, and Haoyue had also made great progress. Its body size had further increased, and now it was more than 30 meters long. Its whole body was covered with amethyst-like scales, but in fact, its cultivation was only at the peak of the 8th rank. However, it was only to evaluate Haoyue, so naturally, it could not be judged by a simple rank. The 2 huge bulges seemed to have the possibility of evolving into heads again. The 6-headed Haoyue had already reached the peak of the 8th rank. If it could have 2 more heads and reach 8, what kind of level would it be? Even Long Haochen himself could not imagine. At the same time, because Haoyue's potential was getting stronger and stronger, Long Haochen became more and more curious about its origin. After integrating Haoyue's bloodline power, Long Haochen's own Haoyue bloodline was also stimulated. The light god domain was originally peaceful, but now it was noble and majestic. Besides life and creation, it was covered with a layer of destruction and destruction. These were originally 2 extremes, but under the effect of Haoyue's powerful bloodline power, they were perfectly combined. Haoyue was certainly not as powerful as Long Haochen now, but the level of its bloodline power could even make the starry sky beast unable to bear it, and it was stripped from Yang Haochen's body, which was equivalent to breaking Yang Haochen's star domain. Under such circumstances, Long Haochen's attack also increased to the strongest. The heart of eternity beat vigorously, and the purple-gold divine sword burst out with unprecedented brilliance. The tyrannical sword intent brought with it a leisurely purple-gold divine light in the air. At this moment, the sword soul and the sword intent merged into one. After the suppression, the rebound caused Long Haochen's realm to instantly increase. However, Yang Haoyu was, after all, Yang Haoyu. The divine beast of the starry sky had only been separated from him for a moment before it covered his body again. However, the enhancement of the star domain had been weakened. Facing Long Haochen's sword, which was like an antelope's horn hanging from an antelope's horn but was full of the truth of heaven and earth, he shouted loudly. The 2 swords in his hands followed a mysterious trajectory and combined. Thousands of starlights became one and collided with Long Haochen's sword. This collision did not matter, but Chern Zidian, who was on the VIP stand of the Knights Templars, changed his expression. His body flashed, and he arrived at the top of the protective cover. He shouted, "Everyone, attack with all your strength, support the protective cover." Inside the protective cover, the 2 of them were fighting excitedly. This was the collision of the 2 of them with all their strength, which had already surpassed the level of ordinary domains. However, they seemed to have forgotten that this was a competition, and it was in the great trial field of the Sanctuary Alliance. The collision of their level was already not something that the protective cover of the divine weapon could withstand. Once the protective cover was broken, perhaps the entire sacred city would be affected. There were so many people outside, if it really exploded, it would be an unprecedented disaster. Chern Zidian did not stop them previously because he was very familiar with Yang Haoyu, and he knew that Yang Haoyu's cultivation was strong, and he was also a person who knew his limit. However, who knew that after Long Haochen suddenly summoned another magical beast to merge with him, he actually forced Yang Haoyu to separate from the starry sky beast. This stimulated Yang Haoyu's strong competitive spirit, and as a result, it resulted in the collision of the strongest attacks. If it exploded, perhaps only a few of the higher-ups of the 6 temples present, who were below the 9th rank, would be able to survive. As the chief referee, how could he let such a situation happen? He immediately asked for help, and the protective cover was the only way to unite everyone's strength. Hearing Chern Zidian's shout, the higher-ups of the 6 temples almost acted without hesitation. Li Jingji was the first to rush out, and he pressed both hands on the protective cover, injecting all his spiritual power into it. This protective cover was very magical. In addition to injecting spiritual power through the matrix, it could also be injected directly into the protective cover, but it did not have the amplification effect like injecting into the matrix. The Grand Temple competition was a competition between the strongest in the Temple League, and all kinds of situations had happened before. Things like increasing the defensive power of the protective cover had also happened in the past Temple competitions. For example, back then, the Son of Reincarnation almost tore the protective cover into pieces. Although the protective cover of the Great Trial Field of the Sanctuary Alliance covered a large area, there was strength in numbers. Everyone present was the top experts of the 6 temples, and with everyone's cooperation, the protective cover was strengthened to an extremely high level in an instant. At this moment, the shaking of the mountain suddenly broke out, and the inside of the protective cover was filled with flowing lights and vibrant colors. The figures of Long Haochen and Yang Haoyu were completely submerged in the magnificent brilliance, and the violent shaking had affected the entire sacred city, as if there was an earthquake. The protective cover withstood the strong impact, and because some of the people maintaining the protective cover had flown over from the viewing area, their cultivation was lower than rank 8. Under the huge shaking, they were pushed back one by one, and the colorful light of the entire protective cover was flickering silently. Everyone could feel that there was an extremely terrifying power in the protective cover, and once it broke out, it would be destructive. The protective cover could withstand the impact of spiritual power, but the bottom of it could not be directly entered to increase the defense. At that moment, the bottom had already cracked, causing the entire Great Trial Field of the Sanctuary Alliance to shake violently, and the top even began to show signs of cracks. At this moment, suddenly, a colorful golden light appeared in mid-air, and the golden light expanded in the wind. In the blink of an eye, it had already broken through the top of the Great Trial Field of the Sanctuary Alliance, and then slowly descended, covering the entire Great Trial Field. The shaking of the sacred city finally stopped, but the Great Trial Field of the Sanctuary Alliance was greatly damaged because of the golden light, and the top had completely disappeared. It was a pagoda, and it was shining with flowing lights and vibrant colors. On the pagoda, there were countless complicated golden demonic patterns that shone with colorful luster. The pagoda had 7 floors, and its size at that moment was just enough to cover the people maintaining the protective cover in the Great Trial Field of the Sanctuary Alliance and the entire protective cover. At the moment when it landed on the ground, the terrifying shaking of the mountain was finally maintained. Outside the Great Trial Field of the Sanctuary Alliance, it was already a mess. All the magic crystal screens that were broadcasting had already turned into powder, and the people had a certain degree of panic in the midst of the shock. Fortunately, the terrifying power that was like an earth dragon turning over only lasted for a very short period of time before it returned to normal. Looking at the huge pagoda that appeared after breaking through the Great Trial Field of the Sanctuary Alliance, the people exclaimed one after another in an instant. Kai quietly floated in midair, and her right hand was stretched out in front of her with her palm facing up. There was no doubt that the thing that suppressed the Great Trial Field of the Sanctuary Alliance was the Tower of Eternity. The current Tower of Eternity was completely different from before. It was less magical, but it had become a real artifact. Although it was not at the level of a supreme artifact, it had the ability to travel through space and had a strong defense. Before the undead disaster Electrolux purified it, it had already recognized Kai as its master. Now it was a powerful artifact that could attack and defend, and it even had the ability to escape through space. The Tower of Eternity emitted a slight buzz, and it lasted for nearly a quarter of an hour before it gradually calmed down. A golden light flashed on Kai's chest, and her right hand waved toward the Tower of Eternity. The Tower of Eternity first flew up 20 meters, then it quickly shrank and fell toward Kai's hand. Finally, it turned into a delicate golden exquisite pagoda that was only 7 inches high, and it fell into her palm. Kai turned her wrist, and the eternal melody on her chest flashed again. The Tower of Eternity turned into a stream of light and disappeared without a trace. Her eyes were already looking at the great trial field eagerly. At that moment, the great trial field had calmed down, and the shield did not break after all. The higher-ups of the 6 temples that maintained the shield also flew back one after another. Many people looked at Kai. If it wasn't for the suppression of the Tower of Eternity, although Sacred City would not really be in danger, the situation that was like an earth dragon turning over would definitely cause great chaos in Sacred City. In the great trial field, the ground looked like it had been plowed. The entire ground was turned over, and Long Houchen and Yang Haoyu were on both sides. Long Houchen landed on the ground, using the 2 separated heavy swords to support his body. His face looked a little pale, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. However, one could clearly see that on his chest, a golden light was shining powerfully. That was a sign that the heart of eternity was beating, and a large amount of light elements were rapidly recovering. Although Yang Haoyu was still floating in the air, he looked a little embarrassed. His hair was messy, and the starry sky armor on his body had disappeared. Chen Zidian was slightly panting. In order to maintain the shield, he paid the most. Looking at the 2 people in the field, he could not help but feel speechless. I lost. Long Houchen and Yang Haoyu almost looked at each other, and said almost at the same time, "Huh." Chen Zidian looked at them with some doubt. Without waiting for Long Houchen to speak, Yang Haoyu already said in a deep voice, "Although I had the upper hand in the battle just now, your spiritual power recovery speed is faster than mine. You can also summon the Holy Unicorn to help you again. If the battle continues, your chances of winning will be higher. Needless to say, I admit defeat." After saying that, his figure flashed, and he took the lead to remove the shield. Long Houchen's eyes showed gratitude. He knew that Yang Haoyu was deliberately letting him win, and the one who lost was actually him. It could be said that his potential was squeezed out by Yang Haoyu. If Yang Haoyu went all out from the beginning, then he would have already lost. Even in the last collision, Yang Haoyu had the upper hand. If Yang Haoyu wanted to kill him, then at most, Long Houchen could only seriously injure him. With the Heart of Eternity, Long Houchen's spiritual power recovery speed was indeed faster than Yang Haoyu's, but if Yang Haoyu did not give him time to recover, all of this would be useless. There was still a big gap between Long Houchen and Yang Haoyu's strength, but this battle had undoubtedly brought him great benefits, especially in the use of the domain. Yang Haoyu had taught him an important lesson. Yang Haoyu admitted defeat in order to fulfill his plan. Obviously, Long Tianyin had already told Long Houchen's plan to the Knights Templars, and even the strongest person in the alliance. Chen Zidian's face showed a trace of a mixture of gratification and surprise. He nodded at Long Houchen and said, "In that case, Long Houchen wins and enters the 4th round. As the large trial field has suffered great damage, the competition will be suspended for today. Immediately organize people to repair it, and the competition will continue tomorrow morning." If the battle between Long Houchen and Qiu Yonghao made him the focus of attention, then the battle between him and Yang Haoyu was the work that made him famous. The collision between domains, the confrontation between evolved domains and domain skills, and the competition between magical beasts and magical beasts. Although no one could clearly see the final result of this battle, there was no doubt that Long Houchen had displayed his strength to everyone. As a young man who was only 25 years old, he had used his cultivation to conquer everyone. From this moment onwards, the Light of Dawn monster hunters had truly risen to the level of the other 6 temple competitions in this year's temple competition. Walking out of the protective shield, Long Houchen strode to Yang Haoyu's side and bowed respectfully to him, saying, "Grandfather Yang, thank you for fulfilling my wish." Yang Haoyu smiled slightly and said, "I'm not fulfilling your wish. You're the one who fulfilled your wish. According to my original intention, I wanted to kill your spirit. Failure is the mother of success. Only when you lose in battle can it stimulate people to find their own weaknesses. It was your own strength that changed my view. You're the most talented young man I've ever seen. At the same time, you have a calmness and experience that doesn't match your age. The Knights Templars, and even the entire Alliance, will be handed over to you. With the help of us old fellows, you can rest assured. From you, I can truly see the rise of humanity and the possibility of breaking through the Dark Age. If you have nothing else, come with me. I have something to say to you. Yes, Grandfather Yang. Long Haochen hurriedly agreed. Long Tianyin patted him on the shoulder and gave Yang Haoyu a standard knight's salute. Although chaos had broken out in the great trial field of the Sanctuary Alliance today, the Sanctuary Alliance had mobilized enough manpower for this year's temple competition. At this time, the crowd outside had been evacuated in an orderly manner. At the same time, many craftsmen had been dispatched to maintain and reorganize the great trial field of the Sanctuary Alliance. Yang Haoyu brought Long Haochen out of the great trial field quietly. With their cultivation, it was very easy for them to not be discovered. Instead of going to the Sanctuary Alliance's headquarters, Yang Haoyu brought Long Haochen to a place that he was familiar with, the Monster Hunter's Mission Tower. Because of the temple competition, this place seemed to be very clean. The people here seemed to know Yang Haoyu. They did not even ask a question and allowed them to go to the top of the tower. Under Yang Haoyu's lead, Long Haochen followed him all the way to the 7th floor of the Monster Hunter's Mission Tower. This was a place that he had never been to before. The first 6 floors of the Monster Hunter's Mission Tower were used to issue missions. As for the 7th floor, only the legend-ranked monster hunters who had accepted the missions from the 6th floor could come up. Although Long Haochen was already the captain of the legend-ranked monster hunters, this was the first time he had come to this place. When they arrived, Long Haochen was surprised to find that there was already a person waiting for them on the 7th floor. "Senior Chen, you are here too?" Long Haochen was pleasantly surprised and went forward to greet him. The person waiting here was none other than the chief judge of the temple competition, Chen Zidian. Chen Zidian laughed and said, "Brother Yang gave me a flirtatious look before leaving the arena. How could I not come?" Yang Haoyu said in a bad mood, "Old Chen, you are already so old, but you are still not serious. In front of young people, you should pay attention to your words." Chen Zidian smiled and said, "What is there to pay attention to? My nature is like this. Otherwise, according to seniority, it would be enough for you to call me ancestor. Long Haochen, your performance today has really made me look at you in a new light." Long Haochen's face turned slightly red and said, "Actually, I lost. It was Grandfather Yang who let me win on purpose. There is still a big gap between me and Grandfather Yang." Chen Zidian shook his head and said, "It doesn't matter if there is a gap as long as there is hope. You have indeed given us an unprecedented hope. Old Yang, am I right?" Yang Haoyu nodded and said, "This child's talent is something I have never seen before in my life. Even I am somewhat jealous of him." Chen Zidian said, "Looking at your battle, I can't help but think of 10 years ago. Brother Yang, do you know? 10 years ago, when I first met this kid, Long Haochen, he was only about 15 years old. At that time, I discovered his talent. I told him to work hard and strive to inherit my mantle in the future, and inherit the title of Demon God's Fall." Yang Haoyu couldn't help but be moved and said, "You have good eyes." Chen Zidian laughed and said, "I have always thought that our Demon God's Fall is still a little famous. But, do you know what this kid replied to me?" Yang Haoyu asked doubtfully, "Did he refuse?" Chen Zidian laughed and said, "Of course he refused. He told me that if one day they can really become legend-ranked monster hunters, then they won't be called Demon God's Fall, but Light of Dawn. I have lived for more than 300 years, but I never thought that there would be a day when I would be shocked by a mere 15-year-old child. But that day I was truly shocked, and so were my companions. Light of Dawn, what a good name, bringing light to humanity in the darkness. In these 10 years, I didn't see the process that he went through, but I saw the results that he went through. Originally, 5 years ago, our lives had already come to an end. Humans can't fight against fate, but with the start of the Holy War, we had no choice but to use a secret method to stay. Another 5 years have passed, and I finally see hope. There is a successor, there is a successor. That's right, Chen Zidian had followed Long Haochen and the rest back from the demons. Speaking of which, when Long Haochen and the rest fell into the demon emperor's trap, it was indeed the will of the heavens. The demon gods' fall monster hunters had always been hiding in the heart of Demon City. Back then, when Long Haochen and the rest had caused such a huge commotion in the heart of Demon City, if the demon god's fall was still there, he would definitely have reacted immediately to support them. However, when Long Haochen and the rest entered the heart of Demon City, it just so happened that the demon god's fall was at the end of his life, so the team temporarily withdrew from Demon City and found a place to cultivate, using a secret method to prolong his life. Chen Zidian and the rest had lived for more than 300 years, and the time they had lived in the demon's territory was longer than the time they had lived in the Temple League. In fact, they had long lost all attachment to life. However, that holy war made them not dare to leave just like that. Once the demon emperor lost his restraints and joined the holy war, then humans would definitely face a huge disaster. After Long Haochen and the rest finished their closed-door cultivation in the Tower of Eternity, Long Haochen sneaked into Demon City again. The first thing he did was to look for Yu Yi, wanting to check on Yu Ye's situation. However, Yu Ye's residence in the Moon Devils was already empty, and there was no trace of her. After that, Long Haochen left the monster hunter's contact signal in Demon City. He did not expect that he would be able to contact the demon gods fall led by Chen Zidian. It was also from them that Long Haochen learned about the various changes that had taken place in the mainland over the past few years, as well as the news that the temple tournament was about to be held. Chen Zidian followed Long Haochen and the rest back and gave advice to Long Haochen. After a discussion, Long Haochen decided to directly participate in the temple tournament in the name of the Light of Dawn. He only had one purpose, and that was to end the current situation of the Temple League's disunity. Hearing Chen Zidian say that his life was about to end, Long Haochen's expression could not help but dim, and he lowered his head in silence. Yang Haoyu smiled and said, "You don't have to be like this, Long Haochen. If you can let old Chen see the hope of us humans breaking through the Dark Age before he leaves, I believe he will definitely leave with a smile." Chen Zidian smiled and nodded. "That's right, old Yang. Why did you call this young fellow over? Just say it." Yang Haoyu said, "Originally, when Tian Yin told me that he should inherit the position of the Temple Master of the Knights Templars, and at the same time, contribute to the new alliance, I was still skeptical. In today's battle, he used his strength to convince me, and I've decided to support him fully. The alliance has been in a state of disunity for too long, and after the Holy War, it's finally ushered in the best opportunity. I believe that the other major temples have seen today's battle very clearly. Old Chen, do you think we should end the temple tournament in advance? Don't waste time." Chen Zidian shook his head and said, "No, the temple tournament is not child's play. Moreover, for these young people, it's also a very important experience. The tournament still needs to continue. Don't you have confidence in Haochen? Even if he can't beat Li Jingji in a one-on-one battle, I'm still very confident in their performance in the team battle later." Yang Haoyu said, "If that's the case, then let's continue. Haochen, I called you here today because there's another thing I want to remind you about." "Go ahead," Long Haochen replied respectfully. Yang Haoyu said, "The establishment of the new alliance is imperative. This time, our goal is to establish a highly centralized alliance, or even a country. Your current strength is enough, but you still lack one thing, the Throne of God." Hearing the words Throne of God, Long Haochen's body couldn't help but tremble. He still clearly remembered the shock he felt when he saw his father use the throne of God for the first time. The throne of God of doomsday and massacre had left a deep impression on him. At that time, he looked forward to the day he could also become a Knight of the Seal. Chapter 247. When do you plan to accept the test of the throne of God? Yang Haoyu asked in a low voice. Long Haochen said, after the temple tournament, I will return to the Knights Templars as soon as possible to accept the test of the throne of God. Not only me, but Han Yu and Zhang Fangfang will also go with me. They have also broken through to the 9th Order and have the qualifications. Yang Haoyu nodded and said, Indeed, you have the qualifications. I called you here today because I hope that you are prepared. If your goal is the eternal and creative throne of God, then from now on, you must consider it clearly. Long Haochen's heart moved. He knew that among the experts of the Knights Templars in this world, Yang Haoyu should be the only one who had tried to obtain the eternal and creative throne of God. Although he failed, that experience must be the most valuable treasure. Yang Haoyu said, Do you know why I didn't become the Knight of the Seal in the end? Long Haochen said, Because you put all your energy into obtaining the recognition of the eternal and creative throne of God? Yang Haoyu smiled bitterly and said, Speaking of which, this is the problem of the starry sky. When I was young, I climbed the sacred mountain of the night, but I didn't find a suitable magical beast. So, like you, I looked for it in the teleportation circle. Your multi-headed magical beast should have been obtained there. Speaking of which, we were both very lucky. I also obtained the recognition of the starry sky there. The strongest ability of the starry sky divine beast is fusion. It doesn't have any offensive or defensive abilities, but it can attract the power of the starry sky to help me train and fight. At the same time, as my training increases, its ability will also gradually increase. That's how it got the title of the #1 divine beast in the starry sky. From a certain point of view, although the throne of God is the signature of the Knights Templars, if it's just the other 5 thrones of God, the benefits they bring me are far less than the starry sky. To me, the starry sky is not only a divine weapon, but also an excellent companion to assist in training. My talent is actually not as good as old Chen's. It's only with the help of the starry sky that I have achieved what I have today. However, the higher the level of the magical beast, the more pride it has. It's not that I didn't want to choose the other throne of God, but the starry sky didn't allow me to choose. It told me that it would not attach itself to a divine weapon of a lower level than itself. So, I could only challenge the recognition of the eternal and creative throne of God. In the end, I failed. Long Haochen suddenly realized that there was such a story behind Yang Haoyu. No wonder he didn't get the throne of God with his level of cultivation. Yang Haoyu said, What surprised me the most today was not your level of cultivation, but the contrast between the starry sky and your multi-headed magical beast. At the last moment, after you summoned your multi-headed magical beast, it let out a roar and temporarily separated me from starry sky. This is the first time I've encountered such a situation since I formed a contract with the starry sky. Do you know what starry sky sent me at that time? Long Haochen shook his head. Yang Haoyu said in a low voice, The starry sky was afraid. From what I know, the starry sky has always been arrogant, even towards me, a contract partner. However, for the first time I felt the cowardice in his character. After the competition, I asked him what happened. After a moment of silence, he told me that if he is the first divine beast under the starry sky, then your multi-headed magical beast is the first demon god above the starry sky. He and your magical beast are far from being on the same level. He refused to say more. The first demon god above the starry sky? Yang Haoyu looked at the shocked expression on Long Haochen's face and couldn't help but ask in surprise, Don't tell me you don't know the origin of your magical beast. Long Haochen shook his head and said, When I first summoned Haoyue to this world, it was just a lizard-like magical beast. At that time, it was covered with cuts and bruises. At this moment, he told them how he used his blood to save Haoyue, giving it a second head of the light attribute, and then to Haoyue's continuous evolution, gaining more and more strength, and even the destruction of the demon god pillar. After listening to Long Haochen's description, Chen Zidian and Yang Haoyu looked at each other. The eyes of these two legendary almighties were filled with shock. They originally thought that Long Haochen destroyed the demon god pillar by relying on the pure power of light of the scion of the holy light, but now they knew that it was actually the ability of Haoyue. So the demon emperor wanted to kill you in order to use the blood contract between you and Haoyue to kill it. What kind of mutant is this Haoyue that even the demon emperor is afraid of? Chen Zidian revealed a thoughtful look, but with more than 300 years of life experience, he had no impression of a magical beast like Haoyue. Yang Haoyu smiled faintly and said, "Old Chen, you don't have to think too much. Although we don't know where Haoyue came from, one thing we can be sure of is that it will definitely be used by us. Don't you understand the binding power of the blood contract? It is equivalent to a part of Haochen's body." Hearing this, Chen Zidian's face also revealed a look of relief. Indeed, with the binding force of the blood contract, the stronger Haoyue was, the better. Yang Haoyu said to Long Haochen, "It seems that the two huge bulges on the left and right sides of your magical beast's neck can become more heads. It is already at the pinnacle of the 8th rank with 6 heads. If it can evolve to 8 heads, won't its strength increase to a level that we can't even imagine? It doesn't need to be much, as long as its cultivation can be equivalent to the 3rd rank of the 9th rank, and also has the ability of a domain, then I will not be a match for it at all if it cooperates with you. At that time, you will truly be the strongest person in our temple league. Haochen, you have to hurry up and help it break through." Long Haochen nodded. In fact, he already had a plan in mind. His improvement over the past 4 years not only helped Haoyue heal all of its injuries, but also made Haoyue's strength improve by leaps and bounds. In the past 5 years, all the spiritual energy he absorbed from the Tower of Eternity had been transferred to Haoyue, so Haoyue could definitely be said to be well prepared now. His foundation was already accumulated enough, and he could break through at any time. However, Haoyue told him through his thoughts that this breakthrough was likely to lead them to face the most powerful existence in Haoyue's plane. The powerhouses in that plane were already on full alert, and if they couldn't stop Haoyue's evolution this time, then they would no longer be able to restrain Haoyue. Therefore, Long Haochen had to be fully prepared, as this was a matter of life and death for Haoyue and them. After this temple league ended, Long Haochen would first strive to obtain the recognition of the Throne of God, and then help Haoyue break through, which would increase his chances of success. Yang Haoyu said, "Among the 6 Throne of God, except for the Throne of God of Eternity and Creation, the other 5 Throne of God can be said to be replicas of it. Although they have reached the level of artifacts, they are not on the same level as the Eternal and Creation Throne of God. With your talent and cultivation, you can definitely obtain the recognition of these Throne of God, and you can directly become a Knight of the Seal. However, if you want to become the owner of the Eternal and Creation Throne of God, then you must accept its test. Back then, I failed when I accepted the test." "Test?" Haochen asked curiously. "Grandfather Yang, what is the test of the Eternal and Creation Throne of God?" Yang Haoyu said, "This is also what I want to tell you. At that time, the main reason why I failed was Long Haochen, Yang Haoyu, and Chen Zidian had a secret talk for more than 2 hours before they left the Monster Hunter's mission tower. Yang Haoyu not only told Long Haochen about the magic of the Eternal and Creation Throne of God, but also told him some of his experience in the field of domain, which benefited him a lot. The chaos in the sacred city had gradually subsided. Under the guidance of a large number of experts from the 6 temples, the order in the sacred city had returned to normal. The great trial field of the Sanctuary Alliance was being repaired in full swing. At least 1,000 craftsmen were involved in it. Fortunately, the internal protection circle was not damaged. With the cooperation of so many craftsmen, it was enough to repair it in one day. The next morning, the competition in the temple continued. When Long Houchen led the Light of Dawn monster hunters into the great trial field of the Sanctuary Alliance again, they almost instantly attracted the attention of all the experts from the 6 temples. The third round of the competition yesterday was coming to an end. Soon, the last few competitions were over, and the top 24 were decided. The third round of the competition ended. Every contestant who won would get 4 points. After this round of competition, there were only 5 contestants from the Knights Templars left. There were 6 from the Magic Temple, 3 from the Soul Temple, 2 from the Assassin Temple, and only 1 from the Warrior Temple passed the third round. The Light of Dawn Monster Hunters was the biggest dark horse, with a total of 7 people passing the third round. After the third round, there were some changes in the ranking. The Knights Templars had 66 points, the Magic Temple had 65 points, the Light of Dawn Monster Hunters had 56 points, the Soul Temple had 42 points, the Assassin Temple had 34 points, and the Warrior Temple had 24 points. The Bright Glimmer of Dawn Demon Hunt Squad participated in the individual competition with 10 members, and after 3 rounds of competition, they unexpectedly jumped to the third place. Moreover, although there was a gap between them and the first 2, it wasn't an insurmountable gap. The gap between the Magic Temple and the Night Temple was only 1 point. At this time, the individual competition had reached its final climax. The fourth round would definitely change the ranking again. This round, every winner would get as many as 8 points. Without a doubt, the Light of Dawn Monster Hunters had become the most popular. There were 7 of them in the fourth round, and they would participate in 7 out of the 12 competitions. Chern Zidian's dignified voice rang out again. The fourth round of the individual competition begins now. 2 Light of Choice descended from the sky with a whoosh, transforming in the air. One of them landed directly in the resting area of the Knights Templars. After all, there were 5 people from the Knights Templars participating in the fourth round and 7 from the Light of Dawn. They made up more than half of the participants in the third round. The light condensed and stopped on a Knights Templars night. At the same time, the other Light of Choice made its choice and chose a powerhouse from the Magic Temple. The fourth round of intense competition had begun. After the battle between Long Houchen and Yang Haoyu the day before, Li Jingji looked exceptionally calm today. He sat in the first row of the participants' resting area in the Magic Temple. As usual, there was a faint smile on his face, as if the outstanding performance of the Light of Dawn night had nothing to do with him. In the fourth round, almost all the remaining participants were rank 9 powerhouses. Moreover, they were the cream of the crop among rank 9 powerhouses, so the competition became even more intense. 2 hours later, half of the 12 matches in the fourth round had passed. Of the 3 participants from the Light of Dawn Monster Hunters, Wang Yuanyuan and Lin Xin advanced to the next round, while Zhang Fangfang lost to Li Jingji. In the 7th match, when the Light of Choice shone on Long Houchen again, the entire arena was silent. On the surface, Long Houchen looked no different from the day before. He still had a smile on his face, and his entire body exuded a gentle aura. However, now, no one dared to underestimate the leader of the Light of Dawn Monster Hunters. Before the battle between Yang Haoyu and Long Houchen, not many people knew him. However, after the battle between them, Yang Haoyu's identity quickly spread. He was the #1 powerhouse of the Knights Templars. After all, only a small number of people could truly understand that battle. Most people only knew that in that battle, Long Houchen was the final winner. Such a young leader of the legend rank Monster Hunters had defeated the Warrior Temple Lord and the #1 powerhouse of the Knights Templars. It could be said that Long Houchen and the Light of Dawn Monster Hunters had become the focus of this year's temple tournament. The glory of the 6 temples had been overshadowed by their strong performances. In the fourth round, Long Houchen fought again. What was surprising was that this time, Whether it was fate or Long Houchen's bad luck, this time, he would face another domain realm master. Moreover, it was one of the most famous masters in the Temple League, the Soul Temple Lord, Chen Hongba, who possessed the Beast King domain. When Chen Hongba saw that his opponent was Long Houchen, he couldn't help but be slightly stunned. If there was someone he didn't want to face, it would be Long Houchen. Through the battle between Long Houchen and Yang Haoyu yesterday, he also understood that the difference between his cultivation and Yang Haoyu's was not just a little bit. Although Long Houchen had only won because Yang Haoyu was willing to give in to him, the fact that he was able to hold on to such an extent had fully demonstrated the strength of this young man. In less than 5 years, he had already become a domain realm master. If he lost to him, it would definitely be a huge loss of face. Even if he won, winning against such a young man wasn't something to be proud of. Thus, when Chen Hongba walked out of the Soul Temple's side, his expression didn't look too good. Long Houchen wasn't Chen Inger. Also, as the Soul Temple Lord, of course, he couldn't admit defeat. He couldn't even go easy on Long Houchen. Long Houchen walked into the arena first to show his respect to Chen Hongba. When he saw him enter the arena, he bowed to Chen Hongba with a standard knight's salute and said, "Hello, Temple Lord Chen." "Yes." Chen Hongba nodded and said, "Let's begin." He didn't want to say anything else. He could only try his best to win this match. After all, Long Houchen couldn't use weapons and equipment like he did in the previous match. With his eyesight, he could naturally see that if the Sword of Life and Sword of Creation didn't exist, Long Houchen wouldn't be able to change his domain a second time. It wasn't that he didn't have a chance to win against Long Houchen. After all, he was still a level 3 9th level master, while Long Houchen shouldn't have reached level 3 yet. However, Chen Hongba was indeed traumatized by facing Long Houchen. Initially, he had the upper hand in the battle with the Light of Dawn. However, who knew that when Long Houchen summoned his 6-headed summoned beast, his 4-headed chimera was immediately frightened and lost its combat power. Until now, Chen Hongba still couldn't figure out what kind of magical beast Long Houchen's mount was. When he thought that his summoned beast would definitely be suppressed, he wasn't in a good mood. However, this time, without the assistance of Chen Er's Beast God domain, Long Houchen's Beast King domain would be able to play its greatest role. Whether the suppression would work or not, it was really hard to say. In the past few years, Chen Hongba's cultivation had also improved a lot. Whether it was in terms of the control of the domain, the control of the summoned beasts, or the quality of the summoned beasts, they had all made great progress. Chen Hongbo raised his hands, and balls of milky white light were released from his palms. In the blink of an eye, they turned into 6 milky white light balls floating in front of him. Since he couldn't use any equipment, he could only use spiritual power to simulate. A door of light appeared behind Chen Hongba almost instantly. His figure flashed and directly merged into the door of light, disappearing without a trace. The Holy Unicorn appeared in front of Long Houchen again. It was not because he was careless, but because Haoyue's ability was too domineering and could easily hurt people. This was the temple tournament, not the demons. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, he would not easily let Haoyue assist him in battle. With the improvement of his cultivation, Haoyue's domineering and destructive power were increasing rapidly. Long Houchen could not easily control Haoyue's emotions when Haoyue erupted. The Holy Unicorn was different. The Star King had followed Long Houchen when he was still a star-like unicorn. It could be said that without Long Houchen, the Holy Unicorn would not have evolved. Therefore, although there was no strong binding contract between it and Long Houchen, its feelings for Long Houchen were very deep. Moreover, following Long Houchen, who had the constitution of the God of Light, was extremely beneficial to its cultivation. Unicorns were naturally close to light. In this world, besides Long Houchen, who could afford to be close to it? However, the Star King also had the same problem as the Star King. It had just evolved into a holy unicorn and was still in the process of adapting. It still had many of the holy unicorn's abilities that it could not use. Otherwise, the enhancement it gave to Long Houchen in yesterday's battle would not have been so simple. Long Houchen also hoped to stimulate the Star King's potential through continuous battles, allowing it to become a true holy unicorn. A terrifying roar shook the entire arena, and a huge figure came out from Chern Hongba's summoning light gate. This huge figure was at least 15 meters tall, and its thick body was like a mountain. Its entire body was covered in shiny white fur that shone with a metallic luster. Its body stood upright, and a pair of huge fists pounded on its chest, making loud boom, boom, boom sounds. This was the first time that Long Houchen had seen such a huge, ape-like magic beast. Ape-like magic beasts had always been the strongest. Not only did they have the ability to tear tigers and leopards apart, but they also had much higher intelligence than ordinary magic beasts. They had powerful physical strength, agility, and a storm-like attack. Ape-like magic beasts had always been a summoner's favorite. 5 years ago, when Long Houchen and the others had challenged Chern Hongba, they had not seen this magic beast. They did not know if Chern Hongba had intentionally given it to them, or if he had not yet obtained it. From the aura of this magic beast, they could determine that it was definitely one of Chern Hongba's 9 contracted magic beasts. It was definitely not an ordinary summon. What surprised Long Houchen was that after Chern Hongba escaped into the light gate, his aura had completely disappeared. Even with his mental strength, he could not find any traces of Chern Hongba. What kind of summoner's ability was this? After the huge, ape-like roar, it had already rushed towards Long Houchen. Its speed was extremely fast, and it seemed to have accelerated twice before leaping forward again. It was already in front of Long Houchen. It suddenly raised its huge right palm and slapped it down on Long Houchen's head. The palm had not yet arrived, but a terrifying gust of wind had already whistled down like a hurricane. What was even more terrifying was that at the same time that the ape-like palm slapped down, a strong chill had already enveloped Long Houchen and the Holy Unicorn. A level 10 ice magic beast was equivalent to a human powerhouse of the 9th level. Just one palm was enough to let Long Houchen fully feel its power. Against a summoner, he must not let him summon all of his summoned beasts. The bone-piercing chill was not only powerful and invasive, but also caused the speed of Long Houchen and the Holy Unicorn to slow down. Faced with such an attack, Long Houchen did not dodge. He raised his palms and made a gesture of holding up the sky. Boom! Amidst the violent roar, many people subconsciously thought that Long Houchen would definitely be slapped down from the sky by this palm. However, the situation in the field was completely opposite. After the palm with such a fierce momentum came into contact with Long Houchen's palms, which were completely disproportionate in size, the body of the ape-like man froze for a moment. In the next moment, his body was thrown directly towards the light door. The Holy Unicorn flapped its wings and chased after it with Long Houchen. A huge golden sword of light appeared out of thin air, somewhat similar to Qiu Yonghao's sword domain that day. This huge sword of light with a fierce sword intent instantly locked on to the ape-like man and slashed down. Not to mention that Long Houchen relied on the Heart of Eternity. His internal spiritual energy was as high as 290,000. Even if his cultivation was a little weaker, he was still riding the Holy Unicorn. The Holy Unicorn added at least 100,000 to his spiritual energy. If he added the Holy Light, it would exceed 150,000. Otherwise, how could Long Houchen have clashed with Yang Haoyu's domain yesterday? Although this Iceland ape was a powerful level 10 magic beast, it was only equivalent to a beginner level 9 powerhouse. In a direct clash, its ice attribute could not break Long Houchen's light, and its spiritual energy was far inferior. Naturally, it was sent flying by Long Houchen's merciless blow. The rules of the temple tournament forbade killing or maiming one's opponent, but summoned beasts were not included. Looking at Long Houchen's appearance, it seemed that he wanted to end the Iceland ape's life with one strike. Only those who had truly faced Long Houchen's sword intent could understand how powerful it was. With his sword soul, once his sword intent burst forth, it was even stronger than Chio Yonghao's. The Iceland ape only felt an indescribably terrifying pressure appear in an instant, locking onto its huge body. It could not even dodge, and could only let out a strange cry as it raised its arms to block. However, anyone could see that if this monstrous sword descended from the sky, it would not be able to block it. Everything had happened too quickly. From Chen Hongba's point of view, no matter what, Long Houchen was still Chen Ying-er's team leader. He would not go as far as to kill Long Houchen right from the start. He had not sent out the Iceland ape to do much, but only hoped that it could delay Long Houchen. Long Houchen's sudden burst of power not only allowed him to see Long Houchen's strength, but also caused him to panic and hurriedly speed up the completion of his spell. In this way, his rhythm had been disrupted. What made Chen Hongba even more furious was that Long Houchen's burst of power was too fast. He wanted to save him, but it was already too late. This Iceland ape was one of his contracted magical beasts. If it was killed by Long Houchen, it would have a significant impact on his strength. Moreover, summoned beasts and contracted beasts all had a very strong bond. For a moment, Chen Hongba could not help but be enraged, and his emotions were once again affected. Cut in half with one strike? Of course not. Long Houchen was the son of light, not the son of slaughter. Moreover, he was facing someone from the Temple League, not the demons. Just as the huge sword was about to cut the Iceland ape's body, the blade suddenly twisted, changing from a slash to a flat slap, directly slapping the Iceland ape's raised arms. When Long Houchen had fought with Yang Haoyu yesterday, he had been completely suppressed by Yang Haoyu in terms of cultivation. Today, facing the Iceland ape, it was the complete opposite. His spiritual power completely suppressed his opponent. Bang. The Iceland ape's body was forcefully smashed into the ground all the way to its waist. Ice shards flew off its arms, and the defensive magic on them was completely shattered. It shook its head and fell straight down, losing the ability to fight. This was only because Long Houchen had been lenient. After breaking the Iceland ape's arms, the huge swords had slapped it on the head, causing it to lose consciousness. Otherwise, he had at least 10 ways to easily kill this level 10 magical beast. With a wave of his hands, a strong golden light gushed out from where Long Houchen was. The golden light instantly enveloped the entire great trial grounds, and a melodious sound reverberated. It was the light god's domain. At that moment, he gave off the feeling that he had gone all out, without the slightest bit of reservation or probing. After the huge sword of light had defeated the Iceland ape, it had received the amplification of the light god's domain, instantly becoming even more solid. With a wave of his right hand, Long Houchen immediately shot it straight towards the standing door of light. That wasn't all. Long Houchen clasped his hands in front of him, and the heart of eternity in front of his chest fiercely throbbed 3 times. Immediately after, a white sword light flew out again, catching up to the huge sword of light in the air, causing the color of the sword of light to immediately turn incandescent. The terrifying swords instantly suppress the barrier in front of it, causing cracks to instantly appear. What the light god's domain could achieve wasn't just a clash of domains and attributes. It also had a terrifying amplification effect on all of Long Houchen's own light attribute abilities. This attack was a combination of sword soul and sword will. Seeing Long Houchen's attack, Chio Yonghao, who was watching from the Warrior's Temple's viewing platform, immediately understood that Long Houchen had gone easy on him that day. He could already use sword soul, and it wasn't as simple as he had just obtained it. Of course, this was also under the effect of the light god's domain. Yesterday, after Long Houchen had talked with Yang Haoyu and Chen Zidian, he had immediately gone into closed-door training, only coming out just before the start of today's competition. In just a day, he had gained a completely new understanding of the abilities of domains, and his cultivation had naturally risen along with it. Of course, this new understanding had to be tempered in battle in order to display its greatest effect. After his resurrection, Long Houchen's biggest regret was the disappearance of Yiting. Along with the destruction of his heart, Yiting's fusion spiritual stove, which had stayed in the acupuncture point of his heart, also disappeared along with her. Even the saint's spiritual stove's ability had left with her. In the process of thinking about Yiting, Long Houchen had a deeper understanding of sword will, which allowed him to obtain sword soul. When he first used sword soul, he vaguely felt that Yiting hadn't really died. It seemed that she still existed somewhere in his body, but he just couldn't truly feel it. He believed that as long as his sword soul became stronger, there would be a day when he would be able to find the place where Yiting was sleeping and wake her up again. The sword soul, as the name suggested, was the soul of the sword. It only had the intent but not the soul, so it couldn't last long. Therefore, the attack of the sword intent usually lacked variation. But when the sword had a soul, the sword intent would become ever-changing, and would inevitably become stronger. In the past, the radiant sword god, Yi Wushang, had reached this realm and became an outstanding talent of the warrior temple. And now, Long Houchen had clearly also reached this realm. In the Knights Templar's spectator stand, Yang Haoyu couldn't help but secretly nod as he watched Long Houchen's sword will and sword soul. Yesterday's match between him and Long Houchen was more about the collision of domains. If Long Houchen had used his sword will and sword soul together with the light god's domain at that time, it would have been a great threat to him. It was just that at that time, both of them were immersed in the conflict of domains, so Long Houchen didn't use it. Roar! An angry roar sounded. Then, a four-colored light shot out from the light door and collided with Long Houchen's giant sword. Speaking of which, the four-colored light was indeed strange. When it collided with the giant sword that Long Houchen's sword will and sword soul, not only did it stop the giant sword from advancing, but it also condensed into a four-colored light ball. Long Houchen activated his sword will with all his might. The light god's domain suddenly contracted and focused on amplification. At this time, the four-colored light ball also exploded. The terrifying explosion instantly put the Great Trial Field's protective barrier under great pressure. Chen Zidian had no choice but to take action again. Long Houchen's gigantic lightsaber was blown to smithereens. Even he and the divine unicorn were sent flying 100 meters away. The light door expanded, and a huge figure rushed out. Wasn't it Chern Hongba's life-summoned beast, the four-headed chimera? Seeing the four-headed chimera, Long Houchen almost subconsciously wanted to summon Haoyue. With the suppression of Haoyue's bloodline, the four-headed chimera should not be of much use. However, Long Houchen quickly dispelled this thought. He felt that the four-headed chimera seemed to have some special changes compared to the previous time. First, it had become stronger. Long Houchen had used all his strength in his attack just now. Even a level 3 or level 4 powerhouse would find it difficult to deal with it. That was an attack with the sword will and sword soul combined with the domain. However, the four-headed chimera had withstood it just like that. Back then, it wasn't this strong and it was much weaker. Another change was in the four-headed chimera's eyes. From its eyes, Long Houchen could see anger and an extremely strong humanness. This is? Without waiting for Long Houchen to think carefully, the four-headed chimera launched a powerful attack. The four heads spat out a breath again. The four breaths did not directly blast towards Long Houchen. Instead, they gathered in the air and turned into a four-colored light ball. Then, it shot towards Long Houchen. At the same time, the four colors of blue, red, yellow, and green instantly spread out from the four-headed chimera's body and launched a powerful collision with Long Houchen's light god domain. It was actually the four-headed chimera's four-elemental domain. Chen Ying'er looked at this scene in amazement. she muttered, "Grandpa is really good. He actually succeeded in cultivating the life fusion. So he has already broken through to level 3. At the side, Lin Xian asked curiously, "What's life fusion?" Chen Ying'er said, "It's the fusion between a summoner and his own life summoning beast. Grandpa has now fused his own power with the four-headed chimera's star jade. Although he can no longer use summoning magic, the power of the star jade will be greatly enhanced. Moreover, Grandpa has full control over it. Its power can be further unleashed. Don't you see that the star jade has already displayed its domain?" Lin Xian suddenly laughed. Chen Ying'er asked doubtfully, "Brother Yuyao, why are you laughing?" Lin Xian laughed and said, "Because I suddenly thought of something. If you also cultivated to level 3 and obtained the life fusion ability, wouldn't you become a pig? Haha, I'm dying of laughter." "You." Chen Ying'er was furious. She raised her hand and pinched Lin Xian's waist fiercely. However, the others couldn't help but laugh. Madul was a little pig. If Chen Ying'er were to fuse with him, she would really become a pig. In the great trial field, although Long Haochen felt that there was something wrong with the four-headed chimera, he didn't guess that it was Chen Hongba's life fusion with the star jade. Although it was just a simple breath, the power of the four-elemental fusion magic had already been proven. Long Haochen didn't dare to be negligent. He raised his right hand and waved it in the air. A bright white light instantly fell from the sky and bombarded the four-elemental light ball. Instant release, light of judgment. When this light of judgment exploded, there was even a mystical Sanskrit sound. Around the light of judgment, there were indistinct angels flying around it. With a loud bang, the four-elemental light ball shattered. Although the huge explosive force engulfed the light of judgment, it didn't fly to Long Haochen.